How are you? Two thumbs up.
Two of them. I only have two.
So we have a big guest today, and we're going to be talking about a movie franchise.
We're what?
Which is we're going to talk about a movie franchise.
Star Wars.
Yeah, of course, it's the only franchise that exists, right? I was hoping to go deep dive into My Little Pony, all the TV movies, but I guess we can go Star Wars.
Cool.
But no, I was thinking Scream. Brian
Oh,
Hawkins. Yeah, we have Brian Hawkins today. Yeah, do you know that guy?
who?
So I know he's in the background. He's waiting to come on, but I have three Brian Hawkins in my life, so it's very stressful.
Oh,
Yeah.
I just
So
have
I have
one.
Brian Hawkins, the comic writer.
Yep.
I have Brian Hawkins, the comic book buyer, who actually buys variant covers and does a whole bunch of stuff with me.
Mm-hmm.
Brian Hawkins should meet that Brian Hawkins. I think they'd get along great.
I was like, are you talking about the same person?
No, it's not. They're not. One's a white guy from New Hampshire. I don't know where Brian Hawkins is from. I'm going to ask him. This Brian Hawkins. And then locally, there's a Brian Hawkins who's an insurance salesman who goes to all the networking stuff with I.
Mm-hmm.
But his claim to fame is he's the DJ at our local, like at our end of the year party. And he's the shit when it comes to the DJ, him and his Miller Lights.
Are you sure this isn't the same guy?
It's probably the same guy. But let's level up, Todd.
We should comic book level up?
We should comic book level up?
We should. You know what? That sounds great.
All right, let's do it.
Yeah, comic book level up.
We are here.
We are.
Tonight we have a great guest. We have Brian Hawkins. We are going to break our normal rules. We're going to talk about comics, but then we're going to deep dive into Scream because Brian is a huge fan of Scream. I'm a huge fan of Scream. Todd's a huge fan of Scream. Todd, did you get a chance to see it?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. Did you bring the young one?
Did you like it? I brought the teen, and he is a big fan. So that was
big
cool.
fan.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. Saw it opening night. Super fan. So let's bring Brian Hawkins on to get to that. Let's get to.
Well, I think are we starting with We're starting with comics first, though.
We're starting with comics first. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm so excited to talk about it. I want
to
know that tonight we're going to spoil the shit out of Scream. So,
yes.
If you have time before we air, like while we're here, you could probably catch the beginning of Scream 1.
Yeah, go for it.
Or maybe read the wiki. Read the wiki real quick. Yes. Catch up.
Because there's a lot there.
There's a lot there. You don't need the TV show. We're probably not going to talk much about that, but we may. I've seen it. So
me too.
I'll talk about Dawson's Creek a little bit. Bring some Kevin Williamson in. It's going to go deep.
Okay. It's like what?
It all makes sense now.
It all comes full circle. So yeah, let's get one of the three Brian Hawkins on to talk about it.
Let's see which one. It'd be awesome if you had them all back there.
That'd be crazy.
Choose the Hawkins.
Here we go.
What an intro.
Is this one?
Right?
What an intro. Wow. It's just me. Sorry. Minus the other two.
All right. That's fine. I'm good. I don't like to see the other one who does the DJing more than once a year, so that's fine.
Okay.
Because nobody wants to be sold insurance ever.
That's
ever.
Wild.
Well, I don't care how much you can save.
Welcome to the show, Brian.
Glad to be here. I'm very excited I'm really excited to talk about comic books, but I'm really excited to talk about Scream.
So are we going to do a truncated comic side then, and we'll get Brian on for a full length one at some point?
Who knows?
We may, but I mean, he's got such a long career. Like for someone how long have you been doing this, Brian?
2012 actually would be my start date, like self-publishing and trying to just get out there. So 2012, 11 years.
Big 1, yeah.
Well, it'll be 11 years this summer, actually.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you're 10 and a half.
10, there we go, 10 and a half. 10 and 6 months.
And what, because your stuff, what's crazy about it, like a lot of our guests we've had, it's at the 10-year mark where like comics, like it's harder to find information about what you've done.
Mm-hmm.
I know it because I've read most of your stuff.
Thank you.
So I know a decent amount of it, but I don't have everything. So what's number one? What's the first thing you wrote?
The first thing I wrote was actually it was like this one issue of it was a horror slasher called I Am Michael Watcher. I actually have a copy of it. I might have the only copy of it actually. And right behind that though, maybe a couple months later, it was America's Kingdom, but it was the first iteration of America's Kingdom. I've been working on America's Kingdom for like years, since undergrad, really. But it was in 2012, 2013, where it began to take a comic book format. So I Am Michael Watcher, America's Kingdom is where it kind of all began.
All right, so let's talk about American Kingdom. It's still live on Kickstarter, right?
Yes, it is. Yes.
All right, so we'll have those links in the comments.
Appreciate it.
What's going on? What is this 11-year odyssey? Why is it taking so long? Because it's not you. You've done tons of other things, or is it you? Like what's going on? What is it too big? What's going on?
It's a little bit of both. So self-publishing in the very beginning and trying to figure everything out. I was really at the onset of Kickstarter, where that platform was just beginning to kind of like take off, right? And not really knowing a whole lot about how the comic book industry works from a certain standpoint, a certain regard or spectrum. So America's Kingdom was originally a screenplay that I began writing in undergrad. And over the course of time, I rewrote it several times. I sent it out to lit agents, et cetera, et cetera. And when I began writing comics, I was just like, man, I think this can make a good comic. And so I transitioned, into writing it as a comic, but that also took several forms, just finding the right story, finding like how everything linked in. And I was also maturing, growing as a writer. So the version of the cover that you see there is where the story, I feel like, really, really settled and became what it was supposed to be. And that was 2015, 2016, maybe. And since then, I've been really self-publishing America's Kingdom. I took a huge break, because I got heavy into freelancing, heavy into editing, and really just got more involved in the comic book industry, and I was doing other things, and with other smaller publishers and et cetera, and on Upwork freelancing. So I kind of took a break from it. It's only in the last year. It's been in my mind for the last 2, but I know in the last year, I knew that I wanted to make it a point in 2023 to really hone in on America's Kingdom, keeping it independent with me, just doing it the way that I wanted it to be done. And so here we are.
Right. No, that's smart, especially when you've worked with a few other people and stuff like that. To keep things, what's important, what you that has value. So what are you going to do with it? You want to keep on to it,
Yeah.
So let's go with let's just go through your press stuff first, if that's okay. Do you have anything to say about American Kingdom, Todd? Can't hear you.
I was typing, so I muted myself because I have a loud keyboard. I need to read it. It's like, I think the only hole in my Brian Hawkins library is America's Kingdom.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, that's cool to hear too. The only hole.
So the other Gnostic studio we've got, so I think the first one, as far as I know, is Don't Ever Blink.
Yes. Yeah.
So you got 2 issues of that, and then you got 2 issues of The Lunatic Lover and Poet,
Yes.
right? So you've got 2 of those. So those 2, and then Believe in the Name.
Yes. So Believe in the Name is a short that I did with Hawkins Aiden and Luca Nicola, I'm sorry. And I made that like a short that was in the first issue of the Lunatic, the Lover, and the Poet. I'm working on something that's more long form with that. I have that out to a couple publishers, so we'll see what happens with that one.
We'll see if it pops up.
Yeah, yeah, my
Well, in both the Lunatic Lover and Poet, we're going to talk about this deep, and Don't Blink, Don't Ever Blink, are both very slasher-ish, right? They
yes,
both have
horror. We're
those
all into the horror. Yeah,
all into the slasher horror specifically.
yeah.
And I think you've said both of these are just on hiatus. Are coming back at some point this year, right? At least one of them.
Yeah, so Don't Ever Blink. Richard Kemp is actually working on issue 3. He's almost finished with issue 3. We actually are in talks with, have a contract on the table for Don't Ever Blink. So
Right.
that most likely is going to be going to the direct market. That's our plan with it. LLP, the Lunacy 11 Poet, is definitely something that I'm keeping with Gnosis along with America's Kingdom. And I have that slated for October 2nd. It's going to be the Kickstarter for that. It's part 3. So it was a 3-part series, Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. Act 3 is just going to be a 2-parter, part 1 and part 2. But I plan on rolling it into one book. And it's going to be like 60 pages. So we're trying to get the majority of that, if not all of it, done first before we go to Kickstarter with that in October. That's the finale.
Cool.
That's finale.
That's
right.
the finale. Yeah. Big 60-page finale. Yeah.
That's cool.
So, and again, this is a great reason to keep it in Gnosis, because that a 60-page finale doesn't work in the direct market, right? They don't want that extra page count at the end because books go down. So that's a great move.
Oh, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's just with I just made up my mind with those two things that after working, being fortunate enough to work with several publishers, that there's some things that I would like in the direct market, but there's some things that I kind of want my hands on and control in and how it goes. And AK and LLP are just two of those IPs that I just want to just put out there. I guess you can call them passion projects. So
Okay.
yeah.
I could see how LLP would be a lot different if there was like other people trying to get like into it.
Right.
They definitely have their opinions, and I think it's good because it's unique and it has a singular vision. I think it's a story that more hands in the pot would dilute it a little bit. So
I'm right there with
that's
you.
good. I'm glad to hear that.
Thanks. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's a great book. It's really well put together, and I think it should be one of those books. I think anybody who's read it will know that, hey, the next one may take some time because there's a lot of like elements that you factor in.
Right. And and then the artists Marcio and Gabriel on colors, like they've been great in being patient with me and how I want to sculpt the story, because my plan for it has, while I have an overall idea of what I've always had what the story is, because that is also a book that was originally a screenplay, and so it coming into comic book form, I really wanted to do certain things with it, and just again growing as a writer and just certain visual cues and aspects that I know that I can put in there now. It's especially with the finale. I definitely wanted to kind of take my time with it to make sure that that everything synced and made sense, and to revisit like the outline and the story, the summary and the synopsis for it. So it's taken longer than I wanted to, but again, that's also with my schedule of things. So, but they've been really patient with me, so I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, question for you about your development. Like, do you like in your head go? Can you take off the blinders? Like, for I got to do this for Mad Cave or Aftershock or Scout. I got to hit the 22-page mark and do it. Versus your own stuff, can you take that off and do whatever you want, kind of in your own stuff, or do you have that like mindset? I have to hit 22 pages.
Well, that's a really good question, and I don't necessarily try to hit like that page mark, but I do think that um I try to structure everything now, like and it might be just me getting older and just keeping track
Sure.
of all the stories and how I want the stories to go. I know earlier on I kind of did a lot of more free writing. It's in my head,
Yeah.
like I have it, but having now being having been an editor for a while and also trying to organize for different publishers, I now see the benefit of really organizing my thoughts and
Right.
even having that outline there. Even if I deviate from the outline, I still have something to go back to the reference. So mostly everything I do now, I would say about 95% of it, I have some form of story that's already written out, be a synopsis or outline, where I can refer back to, even though that might not be the end product.
Yeah, no, I feel you. My goal, early on when you look at the broke down stuff, I wrote as long as I wanted, but now as I progress, I'm trying to get closer to standards, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like trying to get more publishing gigs and got to get close to that 20 pages,
Mm-hmm.
I've only got to the 20 pages once. I've got to 24, 22, a
Yeah.
decent amount of time, but that 20, I don't know how Marvel and DC people do it. Like, I don't get
Tw-
it.
20 can be tough. 20 means like, so when I was doing in this was like a few years back, Devil's Dominion with Black Box, and it was 5 issues, 20 pages, and I think that was really my first, yeah, that was my first 5 issue 20 page series. And so I remember trying to make sure that like everything that needed to happen in those 20 pages needed to happen to carry us on to the next issue. And I remember that it was a learning curve for me, for sure, because there's a standard, and you're working with the increments, because of course the page rates, that's
Right?
money, that's print costs. So there's a lot more factors than when you're self-publishing, I prefer to say independent publishing than
Sure.
than when you're working with someone else, and you have to make sure that all these things are I's are dotted, T's are crossed, and so forth and so on. So
Yeah. What, and Mad Cave is 20, right? Or are they 22?
they originally were 20. I know that in some instances, like in Nottingham, or like when extra pages are needed, it goes to 22 or 24.
Sure.
But for the most part, it's 20, 22, or 24.
Yeah, my friend David Galliano, I remember on the last page, Mad Cave came on the last thing of the last script you guys came back to him. I think you were even his editor on Savage Bastard,
Yeah,
going, we can give you 2 more pages. And he was like, what? That changes everything.
that's
And
a great story too. That's a great story.
I just remember like not being able to functionally understand because I was such in the Kickstarter world.
Yeah.
I was like,
Like what?
what are you talking? The 22 pages is nothing to me. Like, I need at least 4 to accomplish what I need to accomplish.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? 2 pages being a gift.
2 pages is a lot. That's a lot. I got 2 more pages to work with. Oh my god.
It's gonna change my life.
Yeah.
The trade is now gonna be there's 82 pages. Oh, all right.
We need some back matter. We got to throw some back matter in there. Got to make it easy.
All right, so let's go into your Kickstarter stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Danny's got something to say. I'll let Todd click it because I click things and Todd got sad. I saw his face. It was a sad face. Love Mad Cake. Drew a few of their upcoming titles.
I was laughing at you, but that's fine.
Danny also says new David. I assume he means David Hazan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I love David.
Dude, David Hazan, though, sounds extremely like Middle Eastern, which is not David Hazan. All right, so let's go into so your other Creator World books, but we'll go into the Kickstarter one.
Okay.
So, we started out with a story that we don't like to talk about. So you did a little book for a small publisher named Angelica Reigns, which a little rough.
Hey, I love that story. He said we don't like to talk about. That's funny.
Well, I think
That's funny.
it's not that we couldn't even talk about it. It's that you're so far beyond that now, right? Because that was a thing. That was a war for a little bit.
It,
And then I was like, I have another book. I am also going to war. And you're like, I'm cool. As long as I'm a fight with him, I'm done. Uh, you and Greg dipped. You and Greg both were just like, we're good.
it was
You yell at him on the internet.
it was interesting. It was an interesting time. It was an interesting time.
But I would say, much like me, you probably learned a bunch.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And at the end of the day, I'm definitely like, I'm still grateful for like at that point in time, and where we all were and who we,
Right.
I mean the opportunity, and I mean at the end of the day, to be honest with you, I haven't heard much lately.
Right.
But I would be curious to see where things stand, because I believe that he had a good vision.
Yeah.
And it's all about executing that vision. And I don't necessarily like to just cross anyone out. So
Sure.
I'll be interested to see where he is now and what he's attempting to do. And I mean, life is about chances, second chances, and thirds. So long as not some foolishness, then who
Right.
knows, but yeah. But
Right.
it's also about learning and growing. And if we all can learn and grow in this community, I'm all for it.
Well, and again, we're not naming names, but he did right. He came out with my book. He came out with your book. Those books came out eventually,
Hmm.
like to an extent, So, and that's really at the end of the day all you can ask for somebody,
Hmm.
right? right.
Absolutely.
Is my work happened, right?
Yeah.
So let's make our work.
Yep. Exactly. I'm with you.
Todd, are you lost on this whole thing? Is this too
Mhm.
Kickstartery for you? Okay, all right, you're good.
This is
Talking
not my
code.
world.
We talking code.
Yeah, this is inside
We're
baseball.
too much code. Too much code. The people who watch this program,
Yeah.
who get it, will get it, and they will be all in and proud of all the things we've said.
Yes, and if they don't, they can just be like, "What's up?"
Yeah.
Solidarity.
So,
I respect that.
and then you've got the Stellar Odyssey, and you've got Dragonfly, both for I can't even think of the name of the publishing company.
Unparalleled Comics.
Unparalleled.
Great experiences. Great as Jay Sloan. I got to work with Ray Merrick. Like, just like I love the scope of their superhero universe, as well as this galactic Star Wars like universe that they have, and they allow me to play in that sandbox of those characters for several issues. So it was definitely a great experience. For sure.
Are you not doing either of them anymore? Are you off?
They are. I know they're going to be doing a crossover with Dragonfly and some other characters that Jay Sloan has. So I know that Stellar Odyssey has one more issue that's coming out that I wrote. But I'm always open to work with them and for them. They're just good people. They're all about comics and storytelling. So whatever.
Well, and I will tell you this. I'll tell you through the rumor mill. So I don't know if this is true. So I apologize to them if it's not true. It's a good thing. But I heard that they wrote Stellar Odyssey. They struggled with it a little bit to write it, like to what they wanted to.
Okay.
And they looked for you specifically. They asked a friend of mine, "Hey, I think Brian Hawkins is a good fit." I know that friend said, "Yeah, I think he's a good fit to do that." But it's so refreshing in the indie community, people who buy Kickstarter books. Some of them are like, "Hey, man, like this is a great story, but you are not the writer yet to be able to accomplish this, right?" Like me as a writer, like I have things in my belt, like I don't think I can write yet. Like I could write them, but they'll be better if I let it get a little better.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. No. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's not that I couldn't write it. Much like your your American King.
Yeah. It's time.
Yeah, it just takes time to get. You can execute it now, but if you wait, you can execute it better.
Yeah.
And no one wants to buy the same thing over and over again. They just don't.
Right.
So if you can wait and you have other ideas, do those other ideas.
Yeah.
But I really remember having that conversation. That friend telling me that, and I was like, that's such a good move for them. Like thinking and going, I'm not ready for this. I'm going to put someone on it, and I can learn from them by being part of the process. So when I myself, because they're still their characters, are still their stuff. You're the head of the design. I think that's really cool.
That's awesome, man. Thank you for sharing that with me. I didn't know that, so that's cool.
Yeah. All right, and I think that's it for your creator owned, right? For like Kickstarter.
For Kickstarter, absolutely. Yep, that's it.
Okay. All right, where do you want to move next, Todd? Do you want to go to Zetascope, Black Box, or Scout, or Aftershock? We got 4.
I mean, I always know where I want to go when I talk to Brian, but it's not.
All right, where do you want to go?
Well, I don't think it's next. What was your first direct market?
Well, my first direct market was actually Devil's Dominion with Black Box, which was a work for hire. So yeah.
All right, well, let's go to Black Box. Yeah. So I love Black Box. I love what they're doing. I love his unique approaches. He's got all these ideas, and he's hiring. He's clearly looking for very, very high level talent, which I think is beautiful.
Obviously.
Thank you. I wouldn't say I'm high level, but thank you. Bless your heart.
I'll take it.
Hey.
Do you want to give?
Can you talk about that for a minute? Because I just had $175 come out of my account from Walmart.
Sweet. Enjoy that.
Check.
So where was Devil's Dominion your idea that you brought to Black Box? Did they have this skeleton that they're like, hey, we have this idea? How did the relationship start?
So I remember reaching out to Demetrius, the publisher. I know he had done some early work with Ramel Hill, and I was like, it was really early on when they were going to stores, and I reached out to him, and Ramel gave me a great recommendation, which I'm thankful for. And so Demetrius had like the skeleton of a concept of what he wanted Devil's Dominion to be, and we talked on the phone like several times about it. The overall concept was this individual who was possessed or had demonic powers, but wanted to use those demonic powers for good. And he really kind of, allowed me to build from there and to kind of add the nuances and the elements that I thought that could flesh all that out. One of the major things was, I was looking at the genre, Devil's Dominion, supernatural horror adventure. I'm like, we need a Black woman. We need a Black woman in this role, because I don't know any comics that has a Black woman who's in this kind of role. And then we kind of added the elements of who she is, why did she need these demonic powers, what made her change, to use those things for good, and so we end up with this character. Devlin St. Paul, who is, arguably she's my favorite character I've ever written. She's special to me. She's actually the most. I'll say this: she's the character I've written the most. Meaning, I've already written ahead for her some. So, and he's allowed me to really be a part of his IP and to have influence and to contribute. So it's been a great journey.
That's cool. So there's more to come then?
I can unofficially say yes.
Sure. Like it's possible as long as the right wheels are greased. It looks like it's going that way.
I can pretty much say I can't make any official announcement. Sure. But
yeah. Cool. Sweet.
Yeah. We haven't seen the last of Devlin.
Perfect. It didn't feel like it was like the end.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where it's like it's an ending. So like you never know in comics what that means.
Right. No, that's spot on. I'm glad you said that, because that's what we were going for, was an ending, but
it's not a shut door. Yeah. Right. Sweet. Very cool. Yeah. And then from Devil's Dominion, where what was your next project out there?
The next project I wrote, I believe, actually was I was writing Dr. Wilder and Black Cotton at the same time, I think.
Interesting.
I'm pretty much,
Cool.
yeah, I'm pretty sure I was writing those at the same time.
Let's go with Doc Wilder because I
Yeah,
don't
so
have a graphic that shows
Yeah.
both of them.
Well, let's can we take a step back? Sorry, I had to go. It
Wow.
was my son, by the way, who ordered that Walmart.
well, there you go.
Nice.
You know, that's what they do.
Send me some
That's what they
Pokemon
do.
cards.
But at least it's my son instead of like some random
Me?
like
Yeah.
right. Somebody in Michigan trying to get into my Walmart account.
Cotton.
Yeah.
But $175 worth of toys. I mean, he knew what he wanted, and it's funny because I made a joke about it last night. I was like, "You can keep putting things in that cart, you can't buy it." He found a way to go through PayPal.
Yep.
So because my credit card, you need to like hit a
Yeah,
button.
you have to have it. Yeah.
But he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go through the PayPal. No
Ingenuity.
problem."
You gotta love the ingenuity.
So can you talk about how the black box is? I think a lot of people are. I think every book, which is one of the good things of him hiring the people he hires, gives a new face to black box. I think that's why he switches writers and stuff like that. Can you talk about the process? Because I know it a little bit because I talked to Jonathan, but I think people who are watching this would like to know that process, and then we'll talk about Dr. Wilder of what it's like to work for a Dimitri project.
Well, so I would say, he really gives you a lot of creative, I would call it creative control, creative input. Where he has the concept, he wants, he knows the vision of it, and then he allows you to really flesh it out. And, the things that's like, I tend to write about the human condition. So somewhere along the line, there's something in there that's going to speak directly towards that. So he allows that creative input to be put there. And then like even through the process of like drafting, it's not where he's looking over your shoulder, but it's an open channel there of communication, dialogue about what he wants to see in there, what you're doing in there. It really is honestly this great partnership. It's great synergy where you're really working together to bring this idea. And I mean, on another level, he's always sharing the artwork. When the artwork comes in, he's sharing it with you. It's not like, well, you wrote it, I'm gonna go off and do this. It's you're in on the whole process, and it's a lot of just mutual respect, a lot of friendship, a lot of kinship, and I'm hoping he's supposed to be in going to Heroes Con, so I'm hoping to link up with him finally to meet. We've never met in person. We've had so many conversations on the phone, through Zoom and all that, but we've never linked in person. So hopefully this summer we'll be able to link in North Carolina and just hang out a little bit.
Yeah, as an up and coming writer and doing stuff, he's one of the ones I look at, and not because Black Box are my favorite characters. I'm not going to say that, but so many of my writers, my peers who I respect, who are doing great things, are writing really cool superhero stories in this universe. And I was like, I would like to play in that Black Box as well.
Oh, well, I will say this. Here's what I can say. Is that he and I do have a pretty good relationship, and I will definitely mention you to him when he's looking for writers, because he's always looking for writers. So
awesome. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'd like to give it a try. I've loved what Jonathan's done. I've loved what Jay's done.
Yeah.
And what I love about it too is you can tell, because I know you guys' writing, watching, like, because I've read enough of your stuff and Jay's stuff, and seeing like, oh, this is where the editor, like the Dimitri, had a little bit of control. This is where it does, and not as a bad thing. Like those are things I need to read when I read. I'm swearing, when I read like a Brian K. Vaughan or like stuff. I don't know who's taking part of what.
Right.
Whose influence is more influence. A Tom Brevoort, Marvel. We talk about how he's a heavy-handed editor. I don't know what's Tom versus David Pepos. I just know what I like.
Yep.
So I just want to put this out because this is all about comic book level up. For those watching, for those on replay, actually getting advice from this, what Travis just did was low key networking. He didn't ask Brian to give him the hookup, which is great because it leaves Brian the ability to not feel uncomfortable.
Right.
While if he wants to do it, he can freely give the we can make that happen. So there's an actual comic book level up in real time, which is the first time that's happened on the show.
There we go.
Hey,
What a segment.
It's
What
pretty
a
great.
segment.
I think it's great. I think it's wonderful.
Absolutely.
Because that's how the world works.
It is. It is.
There is no resume. It's what just happened there. That's how you move along.
I read Travis' book, so I know. So that is his resume. So that is resume.
right.
Yeah, there you go. And it's a good
There you
fit.
go.
It's a good fit.
For
Anyway,
All right, you can go to Dr. Wilder now. Sorry, we went deep into the black
That was good.
box.
Oh, jeez.
Deep into the black box.
Deep into the black box.
Pull it out. Pulling it out.
So Dr. Wilder, speaking of black box.
So Dr. Wilder was interesting because there was originally another writer on this, and she, I mean, for lack of a better word, she vanished. And Demetrius asked me if I wanted to take a look at the story and step in and see what I could do with it. And I read the first 2 issues were scripted, but I ended up playing around with it and I changed a few things up. They originally they read more like screenplays, but so I'm like, okay, so here's what we can do. And again, he gave me the freedom to go in to play around with this universe, and we end up creating this, in my opinion, this amazing near future story about taking down big game and poaching, and where with this amazing, again, strong black woman character that is like Olivia Pope, but except she runs bless your heart, Brian's from the South. I am. I'm from Virginia.
Bless your little heart.
Bless your heart.
Oh my.
Bless you.
Bless your heart, child.
my
Bless your heart.
child.
And so that's hilarious. And so we ended up creating a story that had this Olivia Pope like character that handles basically a crisis management for animal rights. And it's a story that I absolutely love. And I definitely I still want more people to read it because I think it's one of it's some of Black Box's best stuff. And I think they have a lot of great stuff, but I really, really like what we did with Dr. Wilder.
I like that it's different and the message is different too. That's not like an underlying animal rights is not usually something that you pop up. If it is, it's usually heavy-handed and like it's meant to be for animal rights.
Yeah.
Like whereas this doesn't feel like it was meant to be for animal rights. It's a part of the story. And it's interesting that you said the first 2 issues were like semi-scripted, and then did you fiddled with them and then you went on to like finish it out?
Yes. Yeah. So
cool.
I rewrote the first 2 and then I just knocked out the last 3, and it was a great experience. I mean, I really have a lot of love for Dr. Wilder. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I'm assuming that's pretty unique, having to take somebody else's script who evaporated and then do something. Is it because did they already have art going for it? So were you like
no,
okay, so you weren't constrained by any means.
No.
That's cool.
Yeah. He allowed me to, the concept that was set there for, if she wanted to remained, it was just really certain nuances, how we present it, really hitting like very specific story beats and just making sure that the story from if she wanted to had a focus where it was going. So, and just honing in on the characters, because there were some great characters there, but you just have to make sure that they are playing their roles as they're supposed to.
They get to shine versus just kind of being there.
Yeah.
That's cool. And then you switched it from more like a screenwriter format to like a more comics traditional script too?
Yeah.
The artist probably appreciated that.
Yeah. I think so. They're probably happy with that.
Yeah.
So not a dog station. What?
Wendy sharing dirt.
Chaos.
I'm from Texas. That is definitely a Southern enemy. Yes, it is. You are correct. Bless your heart, child.
Now, does Black Box actively do just one series at a time live?
That is his model for right now. I know that he's tinkering with
With
but I know that for right now, he's really a smart guy, and he is making sure that he's able to really put product out and not be overwhelmed.
right.
So, yes, smart guy.
Well, we've seen
Yeah.
it.
That's a good idea.
We've seen it. Like, hey, new publisher, 12 titles.
Yeah, it's like, okay,
You're like, I can't hold on to
Go
this.
all in.
I'm gonna
Go all in or go
Yeah.
home. Well,
hope I'll be able to finish
I
these.
guess I'll go home.
Mhm, mhm. Ignacio, what's up, bro?
Ignacio.
Ignacio has been
Ignacio.
killing some pages, guys. Oh my god.
Oh, Ignacio is
Yeah.
the man.
Yeah, see, I can't be giving you my artist, and you every time I partner with an artist,
I
he's
owe-
just like, by the way, we want this little
I owe
thing.
you.
Oh,
I owe you, see?
I like this guy. I want the Santa thing. He's just so I'm like, hey guys, you free to do something? They're like, what? Who are you? No, I work with Brian Hawkins. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, hey, I owe you. I completely owe you. I got you. Trust me, I got you.
All right, we're good. All right, so I think we're done with Black Box, right?
We're done with Black Box.
We're done with the Black Box.
Yes, that is. I believe that's the end of the Black Box, unless there's something else that I didn't grab. I think it's just those two, right?
That's all for Black Box
For now.
For now.
Yes.
Aw.
Contractually obligated.
There you go.
You haven't done any pages from that thing I haven't sent you, though.
You haven't
Where's
done any
that?
pages from the thing I haven't sent you. I love it.
Correct.
What the heck?
What the heck, Ignacio?
It's just a smiley face.
He knows the rough
Yeah.
idea.
Mind meld. You know what's in my head?
So
Right, it's only a pitch. I'm not going to write a full script for a
come on.
pitch.
So from Dr. Wilder, you said you were at the same time concurrently writing Black Cotton
Yes.
while you were writing Dr. Wilder,
Yes.
which
They overlap. Yeah.
Golden Burrito Award winning Black Cotton.
Oh, that's a big deal. I was
Rarefied
not aware.
Air that Travis is also in.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, but they made it very clear it's only my anthology,
Just
so it's
the
only when I have other people.
If we get one out,
They make sure
Granite
it's very
State has a
clear.
shot. To be fair, we just have to do the burritos. But Black Cotton, if you've heard me talk before, there's a really high likelihood that you've heard me mention Black Cotton. It is easily, since I've started doing this YouTube thing, the book I've talked about the most. Maybe Green Lantern more, but I feel like more people ask me to, like, they bring in Green Lantern more than I do, because so I don't know if we've talked about how the actual process. While talking to you multiple times about it, I am curious. So you're writing another book, you're working with Black Box. When does Scout come into the equation, and how does that evolve?
So the interesting thing was, like, so Patrick and I originally, like, Black Cotton was actually just going to be like this independent thing that we were just going to do. We thought about doing it in like webtoon form. And then we went, no, well, let's release it independently as a book. We went into art and everything. Like, we were almost done with issue 1 when I was like, well, what do you think about like Scout? And so, I showed him who Scout was, et cetera, and he's like, let's do it. So we ended up sending out to Scout, and within a couple of weeks, they were like, Black Cotton, welcome to the family. We're like, okay, let's do this. So so at that point we had written 2 issues, and that was in November 2020, maybe 2 or 3 issues. And so So because it's creator owned, we had a lot more kind of time to um kind of just move at our own pace while still saying, okay, we knew that Scout, because of where we were at and what Marco was doing with the arc, that we could probably pace a February 2021 release date, which would speed up our process some. So we ended up really just diving into that. I know that we got to around issue 4, issue 5, and we were kind of up ahead of our schedule. And so I know I was working then on maybe the last 2 issues of Dr. Wilder, maybe. So I would kind of just go back and forth. And this is where like having a outline really, is a huge benefit, so that I can go back and I can reference, okay, here's where I'm at, here's what I was doing, check the script. Some things are changing, okay, but you still have to stay true to what the sculpt of the story is supposed to be, because that's where your mind was clear at. And here now you're jumping around, so you don't want to get things all twisted. So I was kind of going back and forth between, again though with Black Cotton, it was a lot more free lane highway, because Patrick and I would talk and some things would change from what we had like structured that story. So it was hindsight, I would say it wasn't difficult, it wasn't tedious, but I know that it was also made that way because there was a lot of organization. Also, the pandemic was, that was happening, so there was a lot more time, and I was heavy into freelance. I wasn't teaching, so like writing was like I was living the dream. So I was like, let's go. Let's go. Free mind here. Like, this is time King Fu's like, ooh, let me channel. Let me channel this.
I love it.
So yeah.
So you're more structured when you're writing alone. Is what I was gathering from that.
That's good. I guess I am. I just learned something about myself.
That's interesting, because you said that you wouldn't even like past Brian. You keep to, this is where maybe a little less of the level up, but something I'm actually curious about.
Brian's level up right now.
Yeah, I'm also a level up therapist.
Taking notes. I got my pen and everything.
You listen to past Brian when you're in the moment. You have your outline, and if you're in the moment thinking you're going to go one way, you'll look back and you'll say, no, that's not the vision, and you'll like eject out of the idea.
So I'm glad you said that. So I try to be sensitive about this. I firmly believe that sometimes when you plan for a story, I believe that the story can have a life of its own, and it can tell you that it needs to go this way. And that's where I believe that the writer, the creator or writer, or both, they kind of have to be sensitive to what the story's telling them. And if the story feels like it needs to go a different way, then you should allow it to go that way, because the story should have the opportunity to live. What you've created with the outline is just your initial blueprint and outline for what you believe it should be. But at the end of the day, I don't think you should necessarily dictate that's how it has to be. I always go back to, and maybe she's become the person you shall not name, but J.K. Rowling. I go back to something that she said in the past about she and her name. I did a little whole Voldemort play. Okay,
right? Yes, no, it's good.
Thank you.
This person that shall not be named.
I feel like well, she actually said that she planned for Ron and Hermione to be together, and she was writing it, and she got to book 5 and 6, and she felt as if the story was telling her that Harry and her should be together, but she forced it and wrote it the way that she planned it. And she said, hindsight, she regrets it. And I think that's just a great example of like where sometimes, yes, this is planned that way and it gets you to this point. But I mean, at the end of the day, if she like your story would have still been the same. It's just that people would have got a different perspective. They would taken something different away, but the overall arc of the story with Harry and Voldemort would still remain the same. You just you lose something, I think, if you don't follow what the story is trying to tell you.
I mean, the heart is in that other stuff. The Harry
Yeah.
Voldemort isn't
Yeah.
really the story. The story is because we don't see the ending. We don't see what happens after that. It's all the stuff that leads up to it.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. And so it's just you just balance it out. You have your outline, and then you kind of battle as you go, depending on what it is. That's interesting.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Absolutely.
And what I love about Black Cotton for you, Brian, is you do a couple of things that give this book its own tone. You know, you do giant establishing shots almost every issue, which is wild and unnecessary for the issue, but it sets a tone. Like, this is the way we're telling the story. No different from one out of like pretty much half of Savage Dragon start with him punching someone in the face through a wall. like there's the tone of that book, or or a letter. Any books that are a lever, we start with a flashback and then we go into stuff. You set a tone, which I think is your first level up, because I think that's a higher level skill.
You.
People don't realize that. The second thing is ninjas. I still don't understand them, but that's fine. We're not going to go into that.
Ninjas can only be good.
No, like I just don't understand. But the third is, which is the hardest thing of Black Cotton, is coming up with new social commentary on the same particular issue. Because there's one issue that starts it, and you have to give different perspective commentary on that same issue, because you can't add extra issue. You can, but it dilutes this story, the importance of the main plot. And I think that is you could run a class on that, of trying to figure that out, trying to masterfully do that. And I would say, 9 times out of 10, like you feel it in the book, like it is a new commentary on the same subject. Because writing a book like this requires, I need to have a lot to say about this subject. Right, you can't just like go into this going, unless it's a 4-issue miniseries. But this is ongoing. We're on volume 2 coming up. You see the emails. So, doing this and having that commentary, how tough is that? Like, do you got to read a lot of Malcolm X, and do you got to read a lot of? Why am I only thinking of Malcolm X?
Martin Luther King. I was wondering who the other person was that you're searching for. Travis, I love that.
It's my Magneto.
I love that Malcolm X is the front of your mind.
It's because of Magneto. Yeah, it's because of Magneto. But yeah, do you read a lot of that philosophers and that commentary to try to get? I mean, I know you are Black, so you live some of these experiences too. But I think that those guys are another level of like seeing it on a social impact, economical. That's why they are Malcolm X and Martin Luther King.
Right. No. Well, one, let me say thank you for all the kind words that you just said. There was a lot there, and I appreciate
3
them
points.
All.
Cover them all.
I appreciate them all.
Fuck ninjas. What?
I appreciate them all. A lot of it. I mean, Patrick and I had a lot of conversations, like conversations that really began with like our own implicit bias and just really just examining ourselves and just trying to exegete just everything, like from looking at society and the place that we're in while we're writing it, right? Because George Floyd happened and all of that. And on a personal level, I know that I was pulling out like a lot of stuff that was inside of me that I have read, like from college to in the present, from Malcolm X to, Du Bois to like a lot of different people. And it's funny because, when you're like with this kind of story, a lot of the things that's inside of you that's just become a part of you subconsciously, they just kind of pull to the surface. And then I would go, I would like, oh man, I read that. And so I would go back and I would Google, and I ended up finding it online. Like, yes, that's exactly what I was trying to say. Right, right. And so, you end up doing this whole kind of research reference thing. But I would have to say nothing was kind of new except for the societal lens that we were in the moment.
Sure.
But it takes on a whole new context, and it then kind of breathes new life into things that some people would consider to be old. And with that and the conversations that we were having and the time we were in, and again, I have to emphasize having the time during the pandemic to just kind of do this full time was really, I mean, it was central to Black Cotton being what we believe it is and how it came out. So it was a lot. Black Cotton was an incredible journey. Um, and even with volume two, it's a different journey, and we're kind of taking our time with this one because we don't have the same freedom because of the pandemic, but or the lack thereof, which is a good thing. But really examining right, like where we want to go with it, what story we're trying to tell, and really still having the same with the same voice and the same
Right.
social examination, if you will. So
Right.
interesting journey for sure.
Thanks, COVID.
I mean, good and bad, man. Good and bad for sure. Good
Hey,
and bad.
you got to find silver linings because there's no
Gotcha.
way that it's okay.
Yeah,
But hey,
yeah.
I own a lot of different versions of this comic.
I appreciate
So
you.
thanks, COVID. Um, and I do love the this is I think the first time I've talked to you and not Patrick
Oh wow.
in
Nice.
a setting like this.
Oh.
Um, there might have been one other time, but most of the time it's also with Patrick. And uh, what's the because you don't get dirt when they're both here. But I know you have nothing. I've talked to you outside of it. I know you have
Dirt.
nothing but
What?
good things to say.
What's
Um,
what?
but but what you spoke a little bit about how your process is a little different.
Mm-hmm.
Does that because there's a lot of people who there's writing partners are a thing,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like it's not as common in comics.
Right.
You see it a lot more in other media where
Mm-hmm.
there's just multiple people tackling this one story. Uh, how did that compare? Especially since you were writing a solo book, you were writing Doc Wilder
Right.
on your own, and then transitioning and doing a like partnership on that. Uh, is the process different? Do you find it harder, easier?
So Black Cotton is the first book I've ever in anything. No, not in anything. It's a couple of screenplays back in the day tried to co-write, and I definitely in my late teens, early 20s, I definitely was not probably the best partner there. But this was definitely my first comic book co-writing, co-creating. And so while we hit it off immediately, we're friends and we kind of, we think the same way a lot of times. You know, he's, he's coming from a different perspective, like Marine, uh, and obviously I'm not a Marine, like so teacher. And so, when we would have those tough conversations with implicit bias, like some of those conversations were tough, not tough to where we were like upset at each other, but like, we had to work through our thought process, work through who we are, and work through what we're trying to present. So far as the writing of it goes, we constructed the outline together. We constructed the story together. Far as the scripting goes, at that point in time, I was definitely, I'm more proficient at the scripting, so I'm
Mhm.
doing
It's
the
your thing.
majority of the
It's what you
scripting.
do.
But
Yeah.
then he'll come in and he'll edit, and that was how he was learning how to script. Was like he'll see what I've done, and and he will go from there. So it was one of the things of while he's also learning to write and to tell the story and to script. I'm leading in the script efforts, but we're building the story together. And sometimes I'm like, here's this idea, and he'll come back with this. I'm like, well, okay, well let me counter with this, and then we'll keep doing that until we really settle in on what it is that we want. One of those things was actually the twins and the swords and so forth and so on, and what that was supposed to signify, what it's supposed to mean, et cetera, et cetera. So it was a very it was an excellent, cool, great process. Something I've never experienced before. It definitely made me a better writer, a better collaborator. I would say the same for him. And we're Black Cotton Volume 2 and how we're going about it. Is flowing differently because we're like a writing team. We're like radio silence now. So we're like, let's go. Let's go. No, but in all seriousness, we are, and I'll say this, we're writing not because someone has told us to, but we're writing a spec script on our own.
Nice.
So we are, it's interesting how that's playing out because it's definitely, we know each other and we know this story. And so now it's all about how do we want to present it in this format. So it's cool. We'll see.
Yeah, that is cool. Yeah. Nice. Sweet. That's interesting. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions
So
for okay, yeah.
Black.
No, I think we're gonna plow through our Zenescope.
Yes. Which I can't find my graphic for.
Oh.
So
You've done a few Zenescope little one shots, which is really, really cool. That's a cool company to work for. They do some unique things. They must have saw your women characters in Black Box and was like, we need to get them over here.
Like the right women. Bring them over here.
Yeah, you can write the women's, get them over here. He's indie, he's cheap. Bring him over.
Here I am running.
Hi.
Pat Shan can't write them all, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen. Pat Shan can't write them all.
I skipped to my stop. I'm here.
So yeah, you got to write some Van Helsing, which is a really cool character. I know that the Zenescope fan base is rabid. Like they're very, very all in with their creators and stuff. So tell us about what that's all about, because I know you've done a few. I think it was 2 Van Helsings and one of the universe things.
I got to do. My first one was the Dark Watchers Gretel story. It was a 72-page one shot, and then I got to do the 2 Van Helsings, Beast of Exmoor and Black Annis. The process with that was really cool. It was really cool because it really taught me, because I knew going in that these are their properties, and they already have a fan base, and so plow through and stuff. I didn't catch that. That's a good one.
Either. Good job, Ignacio.
No, I think only Ignacio caught it, because I think
that's a good one. That's a good one. And so I knew that this had to they have to be presented a certain kind of way. Because of the fan base. But at the same time, I personally knew that I wanted to kind of put a Brian touch on them. Again, I'm going into my thing is the human condition. So I'm trying to weave this in there and making sure my biggest struggle, if I'm going to call it a struggle, was finding the balance between what it is how they wanted to present Van Helsing and Gretel versus I would say the vulnerability that I wanted to give them. So, and I think I wanted to make them a little more vulnerable, maybe, and so I had to find the balance of making that work, which was a great learning curve for me. in working with an IP like that. So where I did not have as much like with Black Box, I definitely had more of a sandbox to play in. With this, it was not necessarily a sandbox, but it was like I had this area and I had to navigate the area and to do something familiar, but also do something new. But the same process as far as writing, I pitched the story, I outlined the story, and from the outline, I went into the script, and then we had maybe like two revisions, and off to the show.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard it a lot of times, and I don't think it's something they want to keep secret of. They give you a lot of feedback. They give you a lot of
Mm-hmm.
revisions on their stuff because they have their
Mhm.
ideas, which I think is good. I mean, that gives you as much Marvel and DC experience as you can get without going
Mhm.
Marvel and DC, right?
Mhm.
Like, because even Mad Cave, even though they kind of own the properties a lot of times, I know that that's changed recently. It's still kind of creator owned. It's not at the end of the day, it's not creator
Right,
owned, but like it's written
right.
creator
I
owned. But
understand.
like,
Yeah, yeah. Like with the Van Helsing, like those IPs are kind of set in stone, and there's a formula to them,
right,
and you have to be within
right,
that formula, and you can't deviate too far. So you're spot on. Like the closest thing you get to Marvel and DC without being Marvel and DC is an experience, and that's kind of how I took it. That's yeah,
yeah.
great learning curve. Sure.
Yeah, I think every time I've taken a writing gig for somebody else, I'm like, I need these experiences. I need people to tell me this doesn't work and let me rewrite it and try to figure
Yeah,
it out. Like, you need that. I just posted about this on Facebook the other day. I think that that's the first level up that every writer needs to learn. I think you even liked it. Like, is getting writing from somebody else so they can tell you what's good. They hired you because they think you're a good writer. You're over that phase. Now they are trying to get you to be the writer they need you to be, and that's a
yeah,
completely different thing, right?
yep.
My kid just spent
Um,
$170. I'll be right back.
that's
I'll
that's
be
the new
right back.
gimmick. Yeah, I'll be right back. All right, so I'm gonna wait for Vineyard till he
Okay.
gets back. But let's talk about a couple of things. You got a kids book, Code Name Danger. I haven't read anything about it. Don't know anything about it. Who's it published through? What's going on there?
North Star Editions Publishing out of Minnesota. They have an imprint called Jellyfish Press. And this was
Okay.
back in 2020. I made a connection with
Yeah.
them. And they reached out to me to write this 2-book series that was about a kid who was an actor who was also a spy. So he was acting as a spy, but he was really a spy. And so the
Right.
acting world kind of blending in with the real life world. It was a fun book. I got to meet a great artist, Anthony Pugh, who I'm
Yeah.
collaborating with on a couple other things now.
Man, you give you one work and Brian's gonna
That
hire you. Like, artists, if you are listening, just get Brian to draw one story and he'll hire you. Like, he has not stopped working with anybody he's ever worked with. Like Zenoscope guy, I work with you too. That guy.
it's funny because the interesting thing is like the Zenoscope people kept me away from the artists. They kept me away from the
Okay,
artists. I'm
all
like,
right.
dang.
You couldn't build that friendship, right? I get you. I get
Yeah,
you.
so I mean, they did share the art with me, but the artist and I didn't get to communicate like
Yeah.
I have in other instances. So, but yeah,
It's just so weird to me. Like, you'll get a better response if that guy knows your
yeah,
vibe. Like
yeah,
every time.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I feel the same way. Like I think it's important to at least communicate, even if it's just an email.
Right.
But yeah, so North Star. So I ended up doing illustrated novel, 2 books, and it was a great process. And I'm not quite sure how well the book did, but I like to throw it out there on Goodreads, et cetera, et cetera. Every now and then, I try to get my kids to read it, and they finish it. I think they finish it. I don't know. Uh, so it's so funny because like one of the big things for me was, I wanted to. Well, I like YA anyway, but I have a spot for, like, I like Last Kids on Earth and certain MG books, and so it was really
Right.
important for me to like write something that my kids right now in this time could read. And it's funny because once you have the book and you're like, hey, you want to read this? They're like, oh wow, I wrote this. Oh, cool. I'm like, okay, it's cool. And so,
I just recently came to the reality. I met Richard Fairgraves, and I've started to become friends with him over the last month or so, and just the reality that you have probably about 30 books under your belt, give or take, right?
oh man, maybe. I mean, yeah,
I counted them.
okay, I'll take it. I'll take it.
Um, yeah, your website has 26, but you're missing 2
Okay.
vineyards, and then I know you have Holiday Spirits 2 and Cthulhu Invades Wonderland with me.
Oh,
So,
dope. Hey,
and I'm sure you have more anthologies. So you're close
oh,
to like 30
nice.
books. But when you go to a bookstore, there's people who have hundreds of books that we've never heard of. None of these writers we've
Yeah.
ever heard of. If they go to a Comic-Con, they're not welcome, even though they do the same shit that we do, because nobody knows them, and that's just
Yeah.
wild to me.
Great point.
Because you think you know the industry, but there's this whole other pocket that's like, you don't talk to us, like we
Yeah.
don't talk to you. We keep it separate. And that's not counting the webtoons, which also
You're
has their
right.
own little pocket. They don't talk to us, we
You're
don't
right.
talk to them.
You're so right.
It's this weird like thing, this focus, where you kind of stay in your lane, and that's where you got to
You
be.
saying that reminds me
But
of the Star Wars universe, where it's like, and I really just began to think about it like this, to where, like, I remember watching, like 4, 5, and 6, and even the
Right.
prequels, right? And you're thinking that this
Right.
whole, like, this whole galactic empire, like this whole galaxy, just understands who Luke Skywalker is. Like you think like
Right.
everyone, like, this is the story, but then you begin to
Right.
understand that, oh snap, like some people didn't even know if Jedis were real, and it's like it blows your mind.
Right.
Like, is that possible? But I think life is that way, right? Where something could be going on right here, and you think it's the center of the universe, but over here it's like, damn, no, they know nothing about it.
Not a problem. Yeah, Silicon Valley Bank closing did not affect me 1 ounce, but I feel a lot of people are very stressed out about it.
There you go.
It still affect you.
Degrees of separation right
Right.
there.
Could still affect me. So let's go into Vineyard, then we got to get to the Scream talk.
Vineyard.
Yes.
Vineyard. So I've already said this to you privately. This is your level up, man. This book was fantastic, masterfully written from beginning to end. Really good for a 4 issue, especially because it feels like a 5 issue, which is so good. Every one of the 4 main characters all got an arc, which is great. They all had a motive, an objective you felt for each one of them, and you could rely. I could see someone reading this book from a different perspective. Like I was with the son. Like, all right, we got to live this business. This is
Right.
what we do. Like, I want to honor my father, but I could see someone going like, no, we need to bash out the old ways, and reading the perspective 100%, not caring about that other side. You know, these guys are out of their mind. Let's do it that way, which is so great, right? Imagine if Scream did that, right? Where we see the killer, like from the beginning, like where the whole thing, you could sympathize with them. We haven't done that. What would that look like? So it was such a wild ride. It's really the best thing. Like, this is your resume book, motherfucker. Like get it out there.
I appreciate
it's
that.
good.
Thank you so much. And I don't take that lightly. So wow.
Yeah.
I definitely appreciate it. We flash it out to Black Cotton and come
That
back.
was weird.
Is this Fight Club? Is this real?
Just a reminder, Black Cotton exists. Okay.
I have different opinions about the ninja stuff.
I would love that.
Everyone's entitled. Hey, everyone's entitled to a wrong opinion. I have no issue with that.
Talk about the Vineyard. What do you think?
I love it. I think it's excellent. I think it fits really well with Aftershock. I think that was. I'm really happy that we got to. When I saw the last one, I was just like, Yay. Because that's a whole thing. So I'm very excited to see it, and I think it's a really intense book that feels good. Like you don't
Right.
read it and you don't hate the world as much as some other books do. Um while still like seeing flaws and still like it's still like it is what it is. It's not like a happy go lucky book. But it read really quickly for me and I really enjoyed it. I had a good bad time with it.
Nice. A good bad time. I'll take that. I'll take that.
Yeah.
A good
I
bad time.
enjoy it a lot. I think it's really strong. I don't know if you'll ever be able to top Black Cotton for me. Because you literally like that's a cultural milestone that it synced up with in the world, and that's a really hard thing to pass. So I think that's your resume book.
Well, thank you for that too.
But
What are you
Vineyard is
talking about? No.
yeah, but Vineyard is right up there and it's excellent. And the perspectives and all of that, like I wasn't with the sun, that's fine. But like literally what Travis was talking about.
You
What?
would. You would. Who
Break
you
down
with?
the system, y'all. Like
All right. So sister coming in or the
yeah,
mom? You're
yeah.
with the
Um
Who
that's
you with?
always how I'm
The
always
son or the sister? Who you with?
yes. I
Pick
usually
your
am with the
side.
sister. Um to be fair. Um
one for
yeah,
the ladies.
obviously. But yeah, where did this come from? It's really interesting. This is probably the most bounced around we've seen from a guest in terms of you've been a lot of different places, and it's really interesting to me like where all this comes from. It speaks to your talent that it's you don't just like find a home, and it's not just because like this friend of yours is like hooking you up and then they liked you so they keep using you. It's you're finding these new places to get work. uh where did this one come from?
So interesting enough, Aftershock reached out to me because of Black Cotton and
Hey.
and because of Devil's Dominion.
Hey, that makes sense.
Those are two books that they mentioned that they had read. And so the whole pitch process was interesting because I went through several pitches before I got to the Vineyard. I had the Vineyard, Travis, in my pocket, but I wasn't ready.
Right.
It's
But
I
I
have a
wasn't
couple
ready,
of
Travis.
those.
I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready. So I wrote the other pitches, um, knowing that I needed to get ready. And so I wrote the other pitches. Several got rejected. And so I finally, I was still toying with the Vineyard. And so I just felt, okay, I'm ready now. And so when I wrote the pitch for the Vineyard. And when I wrote it and I finished the pitch, I already knew. I said, this is it right here. I already know it is. And about 3 weeks later, it's like, okay, we are excited about this. This was unanimous. We're going with this. I'm like, okay, let's go. So, we just jumped right in. We honestly just jumped right in. Um, the log line was there, the pitch was there, the summary was there, the synopsis. It was just the outline. I cranked out that outline because I knew the story, and I had to wait, Travis. I had to wait. I knew the story, and I knew how I wanted to present it. I knew the voices, and I remember being on the meeting, and they're like, "Yo, do you have any artists in mind?" Sammy Cavella, first name I said, and I read Abbott, read Undone by Blood. Mike Marks, he emailed Sammy while we were on the call. Sammy was like, he sent over the pitch. Sammy was like, let's go. I'm like, let's go. It
That's
was
awesome.
it just flowed like that. And, definitely a blessing. It was really cool. And the Vineyard, just as a story, I wanted to do something very visual. I wanted in wine to me is very visual. I drink wine. Not a connoisseur, but I like wine. And I just, I wanted to tell the story that revolves around wine. I'm like, well, you can't tell a story that revolves around wine without Dionysus. I'm like, come on. And I'm like, oh. And I love horror, so you got to take it dark. And I'm like, okay, Dionysus, like, you know what? There's no comic that deals with Dionysus. And whenever you have a story like this with Bacchus or Dionysus, it's always like he's happy and drinking. Like, what if it's dark instead? And so I just started thinking about old gods and demonic dread and like sacrifice and how old religions were. And so and I thought the most personal way to take it was like a family. Have a family that's connected, that's centered around this old religion that the father has introduced and that everyone has bought in, which then goes back to some of my, like, I have a theology background, so I love religion, I love philosophy and all that. So I'm like, okay, well, let's look at the belief systems, extremism, and how that factors into who we are as people. And that's where the vineyard comes from.
That's cool.
No, I think it's really good. It felt like I assume this is a screenplay. The plan was this for a screenplay.
No,
right?
believe it or not, it was.
Really, because it feels like a screenplay.
But I will say, though,
it does.
I am writing one.
Right. Yup, there it is.
It fits. It fits in the modern stuff. It's really good. And what I love about even your females, the female, what's that? What are they called, Todd? I need your what a tree creatures called? Infants.
Ents. Yeah, nymphs and dryads. In the script, I use nymphs, but yeah.
Yeah, but they're sexy, but just enough horror at the same time.
Eldritch sexy.
Like, do you really want to do this? Right. Like, I like it. I like the way it went because again, if this was you've written Zetascope, so we're gonna want a completely different way.
Run back there, like, see what I did?
Different lines. But I love it. I think it's a really well written. I think it plays out. I really wish it never missed a deadline because I think if someone got this monthly, like this would have had
this
way
has
more
got
press
trade
because I don't
written all over it. It just needs to.
Yeah, do you have an idea what the trade? I know that there's still.
Yeah, so they're saying July.
Okay. Wait.
Okay.
Cool.
So, yeah.
Because read it all the way through.
It might be my internet. Hope it's not.
No, I think Todd's freezing up. I think Todd's freezing up. All right.
Yeah.
All right, Todd.
Hey.
Okay. Yeah, the trade's really good. I did hear, for those who, because we've talked about Aftershock in this program a little bit, Aftershock made an appearance at Comic Pro and actually said, hey, we're trying to fix it. We're doing our best we can. We just overspent. When everyone else was saying pencils down, we said pencils up. That was probably not the right call. and it got us into a mess. But I like that, we talked about this earlier, redemption stories, I hope, though, because my whole plan was I was like, all right, got that scout cred. All right, Aftershock, I'm ready for that pitch. And then I was like, maybe I should hold on and slow down a little bit. Things are a little rocky.
Also, since it's like the one place I've heard unifying that everyone likes to work with, I've maybe Brian will be the exception now. Throw the dirt, but I've only heard good things of creators working with Aftershock, which says a lot.
I had a great time. I have no complaints. I love the experience. I love them. And I've had a couple conversations with Brian Cunningham, post everything. And, even with those conversations, I've had a great experience and he's been upfront with me. He's been honest with me. What I believe is being transparent. And, I know what they're trying to do. I know what they're trying to fix. And, I'm not, look, at the end of the day, that would have been sweet. That would have been sweet.
You could just call it die? That would be pretty sweet.
Yeah. I know the hazard, the trouble that that causes, because you have artists, you have creators who is a livelihood, right? And what's happening during Christmas. So, you can never fix that because that's a moment in time. And so that you can't fix that. But the only thing that you can do is attempt to, at the end of the day, businesses fail, businesses struggle, businesses try to come back. That's capitalism in America, and we all get caught up in it, and we all, there's aftermath to it. And with the comic book industry, I mean, that's a whole nother thing. So I try to handle everything with a grain of salt, and I try to understand both sides. I'm on both sides, and so I'm not going to hold any animosity. It's just not who I am. So my thing is, I'm going to try to go towards what's fair, what's right. I'm going to try to have some understanding. I know that there's certain things on my side that I need, that there's certain things on other creators' side that they need, and we'll see what happens. But like in the conversations I've had post the bankruptcy, again, I feel like they've tried to be transparent with me, as far as I know, as far as what I can kind of ascertain. So but as far as the vineyard, like that process was a smooth process. My creators who were with me, they still do, they're owed. And so, Brian Cunningham's gone, on, on blast with me to say, here's what needs to take place. And if it doesn't take place, then I have a problem with it. And so I trust what he's saying. And I trust that at the end of the day, the things that need to be done will be done. And if they're not done, then that's a different story. That's a whole different story, and then we have to deal with that story
That's a bridge in the future that may not need to be dealt with.
And that's not to dismiss the fact that there's hardship that has happened.
Sure,
and you can never actually fix that hardship.
Yeah, and I mean that is, like you said, that is literally just doing business in this country. That is reality as we know it. Like that stuff happens, and it's how you move forward. Makes a huge difference on the perception of what happened.
How you move forward is critical, because that's your redemption story, right? And
that's how you show what you are.
Exactly.
Because
Yep.
Well, and I think, when we look at these things at the end of the day, Aftershock has proven to be a level up for many people.
Oh yeah.
Like, it's a company that the bigger companies trust. They are going to get talent. The Pruitt, Joe Pruitt is going to get talent. He's very good at that. Like, let him do his thing. And I think that's something to note. And I feel they did, for my, when I think of my friend Brian Hawkins, I'm like, my boy's book came out. I have no problem with it. I know there's all sorts of extra stuff, but that's what I look at the end of the day. Did my boy's book come out? Yep. All right.
Made me happy.
I appreciate that. I appreciate it.
Go ahead, call me.
Putting the pulls away at the comic book shop. I was very pleased.
All right, so I think we're going to do the final questions. I do want to just note, and we'll actually probably even have you on for it. This isn't counting your whole Mad Cave editing.
We didn't even go over editing, which is,
we didn't even go over that, which is crazy.
We weren't going to touch on that because that's like a whole nother thing, but that's why we can talk to you again, and we can talk about the editing stuff.
Anytime, of course.
All right, so let's go over our questions. We have a few questions we ask everyone who comes on here. So let's go through it. I will start. Question number 1. What do you think makes you stand out in the comic market, Brian?
Oh, that's a tough one. Oh my goodness.
We recommend you watch the show before you watch.
Duly noted. But I'm not prepared anyway.
Right. I did watch the show. I have children. I didn't really see a lot of it, but I watched
when Olivia came and asked me to play LOL dolls. Dang it. So I think it's man, I've said this a few times, but I think that um, a part of my storytelling is central to my storytelling is the human condition, and I think that
Right.
um, I've kind of hung my hat on that, even going back to being a teacher. Like I taught literature through the idea of the human condition. Even my Substack is named Character plus Obstacle equals Story, and so I'm always kind of going back to my teacher roots. And I think how I write stories, the comics I create, is kind of still coming from that same place. And I think it's not so much of anything that I do per se. I do think I try to, I don't want to say networking, but I try to reach out. I'm not shy to reach out. I'm not shy to just throw someone something on LinkedIn, say, "Hey, I hope we connect someday," or something like that. So I'm all about like reaching out. So I think that's a part of it. But as far as my storytelling, I think I know who I am as a person, and I know the kind of stories I want to tell, and I don't have to like bombard all stories to feel that way, but I know how to put me into a story. Like author's purpose is to convey a message, and I always have a message, and I try to put that message in different characters and different stories where I can, and I think that's kind of like my signature.
Mhm.
I told you I watched. I knew
It's good.
it was
It was
all a
good.
game. I knew.
I agree. It's all a game.
It's all
So we talked a little, we touched on this just now basically. But the second question, when the unexpected happens, when the expected happens but it still sucks, what makes you keep going in this career, in this constant battle to level up? What keeps you going when it becomes difficult, almost to the point of like I hate everything?
So I'm at the pull. I've always had this thing ever since he came into the league, and what before he became who he was when he shot the air balls. I have this thing with Kobe Bryant, and I just feel like even more like, especially later in his career, and even more so now that he's gone. Like for some reason, because the phones they listen and they watch you anyway. Like they, like I always get reels of Kobe, and I'm just constantly reminded of that philosophy that he has and that I share. That you know, I mean, am I going to look at myself in the mirror and say I can't do this? I can't live with myself saying I can't do something that I believe I can do. And so that's what it comes down to. Like I don't mind failing at things, but I can't be a failure. I can fail to get better and keep getting better and getting better. But there's not going to be, and I've chosen this to be especially one of the things where I'm not going to say I couldn't do and I'm done ever because I can't look at myself in the mirror. So this has to be something that I'm all in on. It's a non-negotiable, and it's something that I have to just if I get knocked down, I'm going to get back up and keep going because it's I just can't accept myself being a failure. I can accept failing, but I
Yeah.
can't accept myself being a failure.
If you can't accept failing, you've failed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
So it's all
no,
about just being
it's,
better. And I feel like I
yeah.
can always get better. Like I never believe I'm at a point of, hey, yo, what's up? I'm never at a point where I feel I've arrived. I feel like I'm always learning. I always want to learn. I'm a learner. I have the educational background as a teacher, so I understand that the first slip up that you can have as a human being is to think that you know when you honestly don't know. So it's just constant learning.
It's interesting you say that because I read a lot of like motivational stuff and leadership stuff, and one of them that I read talked about Belichick. Belichick and how he's won so many Super Bowls, and it's literally that strategy. It's they win the Super Bowl next year, you're at the bottom again. He's like, because you watch all these people win the Super Bowl, then they don't see it again for 10, 20 years. It's because they believe they're on hype, right? They spent all their money, spent all the wonderful like banners and all them things. Oh, we're champ. But if you ever go and look at the Patriot Stadium, if they're not playing a playoff games, none of those banners are up. Because it's always like back to humility, back to stuff. We're only as good as the last game we won. And it's an interesting perspective.
I didn't know that about the banners. That's really cool. Like, yeah.
I still hate them.
Yeah, they don't have all the Superman chip, blah blah blah. They have something on the outside for the fans, but inside, when you're playing on the field, you look up, you're not going to see any of that stuff.
That's cool, I guess.
All right,
bring in the Patriots. Don't use that as a metaphor. I will hate it.
What does leveling up in comics look like for you? Besides,
it goes from a Kobe to a Tom Brady. It's a huge downgrade.
Right? He's saying things I don't understand. Let's relate to things that are. No, what does level look like?
Man, you know what, Travis? You know what, Todd? Yeah. This is gonna be an interesting answer, I think, because I'm gonna say that for me, one of my pursuits, to be honest with you, just as an individual, is really growing and having a solid reader base for my independent books, believe it or not. I mean, I would write for Marvel and DC if, of course. But if I'm being honest with you, my purpose in that is to play with their characters a little bit, but it would be just to really honestly grow my own stuff anyway. It would be more like a James Tynion thing where, I'm just using them to get to this place. So I'm more interested in not just creator owned, but I like the publishers that are the Images, the Dark Horse, IDW's Boom, Scout, all the indie publishers. I like what they're doing and how they are, in my opinion, trying to level up with where I think everyone believes Marvel and DC is as far as IP. And I like their hustle. And I feel that, I would always love to write for, work for hire, whatever, those kinds of publishers. But I also want to really, really like delve into that creator run, like what James Tynion's doing, and like Jeff Lemire, other creators like that, like
Kirkman.
Kirkman, of course, yes. Yeah. They are building, they're building their own empire. They're building their own IP, and I think that's important as a creator while you are going for the publishers, because there is something there that you can learn. You can do everything. Just me right now, I feel like I've spent a lot of time freelancing without having touched Marvel or DC. And even though I haven't touched Marvel and DC, the freelancing world is very interesting. And I love it. I like it. But I also know that there's this part of me that, what if I could work 100% on my stuff? And it was like a legitimate avenue for my stuff. And that's where James Tynion is. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't need another entity to quote unquote validate him or anything. And I think so for me, my next level up would be step one would be to kind of figure out, as far as Kickstarter goes, what that looks like for me and how to have consistent readership. And that does not mean Charles Stickney numbers or Pat Shan numbers. It means, is there 300 or 400 or 500 people that I can get, maybe 200 people that's reading America's Kingdom and LLP consistently?
Yes, every time.
Every single time. And that's honestly my goal. And hopefully, I'll still have the avenues, for like Aftershocks and the Mad Caves and the Black Box and the Zenoscope to still play in those universes and to grow myself as a writer and a creator to interact with all these great people. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love it. All right. Last question. All right. So I love that, by the way. That's
Cool.
like you want people to both on Kickstarter go, it's a Hawkins, grab it. And then when they go into their comic book shop, go, Hawkins, grab it. It doesn't matter that it says Vineyard or Aftershock. It says Hawkins.
Yeah.
Yank.
Yank it.
You got one.
One. That's where we start at. That's where we start.
I can guarantee there's one. I can't guarantee for you. I can only guarantee for myself.
You got two. That's a hey. That's a start.
Two.
Thank you guys so much.
But as you know, like I do that on Kickstarter. You know, I've figured out. You know, I've got about 200 backers with my name on it. With if it's Orange Cone, it's 200, but it's only 100 if it's on somebody else's book. So if I'm writing somebody else's book, it's about 100. So all right. So how do I get these 100? That other 100 who's only back for Orange Cone? What does that look like? You know. And now I've got some diamond numbers. All right. So now I know where my diamond numbers are. That's the stuff that keeps me up at night, man. Like. How I get that 1,000?
And the diamond numbers don't always translate to the Kickstarter numbers. And it's like, you know, whoa,
that's someone flipping through preview and likes the book, and it's just eyes on.
Yeah,
it's a whole different breed.
All
right, so last question. Crap.
We went black.
Oh no.
What happened?
I don't know.
Lights out.
Oh. What the? Oh God. All right. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
I can hear you.
Perfect.
What's going on?
I see me.
Okay. Hey, what? Who the?
What's going on here?
So, Brian.
Hey.
Do you like scary comics?
I love it.
Yeah, you like them?
Who is this?
Todd here needs you to answer some questions.
I feel like I played this game before.
How about let's start off with a warm-up?
Okay, let's go.
Who wrote Hellboy?
Ooh, Mike Mignola.
Good job, Brian.
Yeah. Nobody's dying here.
Todd doesn't get a knife yet. First question. Who is the artist on Preacher?
Yo, Todd's about to get a knife, yo. Todd's about to get a knife. Sorry, Todd. I don't know. Wait. Oh, I want to go look at the book. I should go look. Can you see me? Go look. Should I Google this? Damn it. I know this. I'm going to kick myself. Watch. Because I do know this. I'm going to blame it on the Hennessy, yo. Oh, my goodness. Watch this. It's going to be so horrible. Oh, Steve.
Time's ticking.
Steve Dillon. Dang. Steve Dillon. Dang it. I knew that, though.
Here's a makeup question. Who was the publisher that made Tales from the Crypt, Vault of Horror, and Haunt of Fear? Tick-tock, Brian. Tick-tock.
Oh God! Brian, help!
No, Todd. Wait a second. Wait. I know this.
It's EC Comics.
I don't know this. EC, no. See, I wouldn't have got that.
It is EC Comics. Good job, Brian.
Final question. Thank you, Ignacio. Kirby Nation.
What classic horror novel turned movie was made into a comic and published by Marvel in 1983,
What?
and later reprinted by Dark Horse in 2008.
Can you repeat that?
One last time, Brian. What classic horror novel turned movie was made into a comic and published by Marvel in 1983, later reprinted by Dark Horse in 2008? Tick tock.
Aliens?
Oh man, you killed Todd.
No!
Todd.
No!
Now we're here with Megatron the whole with Optimus Prime the whole time.
I could. I'm sorry, Todd. Ignacio tried to
There
help
is
me.
no Todd.
He tried. He tried to help me.
All right.
But
So
the EC comment got me, yo. The EC comment got me, yo.
it is time. Optimus Prime was killed.
Autobots, transform and roll out.
There we go. See, I had a voice modulator. Oh, jeez. Oh, God, I beat him off, guys.
What?
Yeah, you know, that's what you say when you get somebody away, right?
No.
It's the Charles Boyle phrasing.
Whatever you have to do to survive, Todd. Whatever you have to do.
Exactly.
Beat him off or not.
Well, I'm dead. Thanks a lot, Brian.
I did my best,
So
which was not
I
great.
am Autobot.
No. Do.
The Decepticons' Megatron is in my sights.
No. Sorry, once I'm going to mute.
all right, so it is Scream time, Brian. We are going to talk about the Scream franchise. We are at number 6, a great movie, in my opinion. What did you think? You saw it. By the way, if you haven't seen the movie, get the fuck out of here because you guys are in a bad situation because we're going to spoil the fuck.
Spoilers.
So tell us about it.
All right, look. So here's what I'll start with.
Right.
My top 3 rankings have changed. I was supposed to have to do a Substack today, but I'm still actually trying to figure out what my rankings are. I don't know anymore. Like my top 3 have changed.
Okay.
And so we're clear. My number 4, my number 1 was actually number 4. Number 4 is my favorite movie of Scream. I love number 4. And number 1 was my number 2. So what I'm saying is number 6 is in my top 3. Wow. I just don't know where to place it. And I have my reasons why it is.
I have some insider knowledge, and I think Travis agrees with you.
Ooh.
No, I really like 4. A lot of people don't like 4. I like 4. So that
Okay.
1 is still my number 2, but 2 is number 4. But there was a whole generation of Scream fans who were like, Scream 4 doesn't really count. No, man, like it was really good.
It doesn't count.
You need to see.
Well, it's not that it doesn't count. It's that it's not as good. And now that they're doing a second trilogy, they like, it's kind of a waste. It should be, there should be 4, 5, and 6.
They need to put some respect on number 4, yeah.
The only problem that I have with 4 is the cinematography. I hate how it was shot.
Okay.
All the glows, and it was much brighter than the other ones and things like that. Like, which is fine. It's a whole different angle to take.
Mm-hmm.
That's the design part of things, and the visuals is like I feed off of that more than most other things.
Okay.
And that's my issue with 4. Whereas I love the story, I like what they did with it, and all of that, which it is what it is.
I mean, the message of 4 is what
message of 4 is great.
The message of 4, the don't fuck with the original like that.
Yep.
Like all day.
Yep.
But also 4 to me, I mean, for me, I thought 4 was probably, for me, if I'm looking at 1, 2, and 3, 4 was the most personal. I get Billy and everything, and I get Roman, but 4 to me felt like the most personal attack on Signy. This is coming from family. This is coming from family. Like, your family has a problem with you, even though it's kind of like bonkers, but she still had a problem, and that's family. I felt 4 was just really personal.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
I agree. And Kirby was great, and like the way the way the town handles things, was great. Woodsboro, like it really felt it felt good. You felt, and even the ending, you felt positive about the ending. Like these motherfuckers know what's going on now. Like Gail figured it out. Wait, how'd she know about the shoulder? Like these guys, they get shit now. Like they are
Yeah.
not stupid anymore.
No, no.
Nope.
And it brought it back to Woodsboro because we hadn't been in Woodsboro since number 1.
Right.
So it's like how can
They
you
were
not-
kind of in they were in Woodsboro for 3.
the act.
It was just a
the
fake
setting.
Woodsboro.
Yeah, the setting.
But yes, that was neat.
Yeah.
So you think 6 is going to be 3? So you like 6 more than 5?
I like 6 more than 5, yes. But I will tell you this, that 6 made me like 5 even more.
Sure.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's key right there. Is
Yep.
6 built on 5?
Yep.
Because 5 did such a good job making 6 even work. Because there was a good shot that they could have screwed up the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And 5 was such a good requel that they were able to make 6. It was able to let 6 function and continue and move into franchise rules and do all that. I really liked 5. I was ready to hate 5 because it was been too long, and I was just prepped for it, which made my bar very low. So I was pleasantly surprised when I legitimately enjoyed it. I'm just waiting for the franchise to get ruined, to be perfectly honest.
It's not going to happen.
But it keeps not happening. I really liked this movie.
I was interesting enough is that I like 5 the second time I saw it more than the first. And check this out. Now, don't get me wrong, I liked 5 in the beginning too. Like I liked it when I saw it in theater. I didn't watch 5 for a whole year. I waited until the night before Scream 6, and my oldest daughter and my son, we stayed up Friday and watched it. And I enjoyed 5 more that time than I did the first time. And I knew what the difference was. The difference was I was no longer expecting Sydney to be the main character.
Yes. Yeah.
That's
totally.
That's it. That changed my whole thing going into it. Once, like, I was able to appreciate the characters for who they are, not wanting or expecting Sydney to be more than what she was.
Because you're ready for them to be fodder and Sydney to still come out being like the lone survivor type thing.
Yes.
So now you get to watch it with these are the new Sydneys.
Exactly.
And move from there.
And it gave me a greater appreciation for the new cast, and I saw it in different light, which really goes into the whole idea of just bias. Like, you have this bias that you enter into, especially when you're dealing with like something as long lasting as Scream, and especially when like I saw the first one in theaters. So like when you are going into this, like you want, like I know going into 5, I wanted Sydney. I want to know why was Ghostface going after Sydney. And when Ghostface wasn't going after Sydney, I'm just like, what's going on here? And the whole time I'm waiting for Sydney, which then kind of takes away from really understanding Samantha and Tara and all of them. And I'm just like, but I still got it. But there's this thing with that first viewing with a different expectation. Mm-hmm. So that Friday night when I didn't have the expectation, 5 was great for me. I'm like, yo, I get it. I totally get it. Then going into 6 the next day, I'm like, yo,
the
Richie angle.
Oh, the Richie angle was great.
Y'all worked it. Y'all made me like Richie more.
Yeah, right? Can we acknowledge like just the face on the phone of the dead killer from the last movie?
Yep.
How much that affected you. And it's such a small thing, but like, why are we at movie 6 before you do that shit? That was
right. Oh, it was so good. Because if Roman would have been popping up during 4 for Sydney, it would have been like a whole thing. But I love that they waited for the iPhone era to use that so that it's like, it's Richie. It's so good. My favorite thing about 5 and 6 from the evolution to where it is they've added more meta to it, because the horror movie franchise like rule that they don't talk about is the return of a killer. And while Scream doesn't do that, they've managed to return a killer through the eyes of Sam that we as an audience get to see, but
Mhm.
no one else gets to. And we get to enjoy that meta layer. It's another meta layer on top of all of the other meta goodness that they usually do, where Billy's back, but not really. And it's only because we're the audience that we get to see Billy back and we get to see how actually messed up Sam is.
Oh, she's so messed up.
She's so messed
She's
up.
so messed up. And I
And
have
they
a
don't
big
know.
statement
They
about
have
that.
no idea
No.
how messed up she is.
I have
And
a
it's
big
two
statement
movies
about
now
that.
that
Yes.
they haven't.
They don't
Ooh, it's
know.
going to come to a head.
Tara is starting to get an idea though.
A little bit because she got to see it.
Yeah, but she's messed up, yeah.
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 Oh.
But they keep
Oh.
throwing it back like she's still good. Like she threw down the mask at the end of the movie. They're still playing with it with a
Oh,
little
yeah.
But how
I don't think
great
she'll
was it?
ever be the killer. But
I mean,
I
she's
don't know.
already a killer. She's a killer.
I don't know. I
I
don't think
think
she'll ever
she's
be
gonna hunt.
the killer.
I don't know. Don't you feel like they kind of like foreshadowed it for 7?
But she could be the killer.
Didn't they kind of foreshadow it for 7 to say like you know, because the one guy was like, well, why can't they be the killers? Like, didn't he kind of foreshadow it? And isn't that where Sam's going with this? I feel like it would be a bold move, but I mean, how much did you love her being in that mask?
Oh, it was so good.
It's good. I have for we haven't really talked about 6 yet, but let's go to predictions for 7 because I think that's where we're going. And we'll go back to 6. So I have
Sam
two
hunts down other killers.
I think that is eventually going to happen. I think that she's going to actually hunt a ghost face. Like she will not be involved. Like imagine you get Sydney back and it's attacking Sydney and Sam's like, "Oh motherfucker, I'm going to go."
Yep.
Like doing the other
She's
one.
the ghost face killer,
Right. Amazing.
Yeah.
So there's 2 theories I have. One, I think the next film is going to be because they're following the track of 1 and 2, right? They're back in college. They're following the family interaction. I think we're gonna see the Richie movie for number 3 for number 7. The actual because remember we've painted her as a bad guy. Now she's killed his whole family.
Huh?
He gets a movie because it's a whole thing. The Staff franchise reboot. Richie's plot, Richie's vision portrayed on the screen because that's just the natural progression of that.
Intercut with his real footage that he took.
Yeah, which is good. I also think we're going to see Stu in the next movie because remember they were living at Stu's house. I wouldn't be surprised in all that stuff that they have some old Billy and Stu footage. Like he's not going to come back as a character, but some old Billy and Stu footage of Planet, which I think would be cool.
Oh, the museum was so cool.
Yeah.
I want that museum to be real so badly.
That was so cool.
But yeah, all that footage. And like
that.
if they're able to first of all, if you're able to dig up all of the old masks,
right,
which is wild that they even like they brought that in and they have established like legacy masks now where they're out there that people can pick up and take the mantle of specific killers and then work off of their work. Jerome. I love that where we get like this old footage from all these different, especially like starts with 1 and we start seeing that more throughout the movies where it's their movie being told as like a Netflix special instead of like a stab or something would be.
Yes, really cool. Jerome, you have to leave. If you
gotta leave.
You
gotta go. You have to go.
It's on it's ticking for a reason.
Yeah. The other theory I have, which is also crazy. So, Kirby. Let's talk about Kirby.
Mm-hmm.
We know what's that?
So bought in.
I said Kirby Nation. I love me some Kirby.
I love Kirby too. I was ready for her to be the killer so bad. I was so excited.
Here's the thing.
I thought it was going to be her for a second.
Here's my theory. I think she still is.
Oh, I think she still is set up to be it for sure.
So you have these 2 kids in the beginning. They both came from Atlanta.
Yep.
She was working in Atlanta.
At the time,
I think the only reason why she saved them is they were fucking up her plot, which was those 2 kids.
How
did she get there so fast? She was already planning to murder them with these 2 kids. That was her plan. That got fucked up by this killer. She just got involved in the shit, but she could still be a killer.
That would look. I did not want her to be a killer, but
Right, sure. Yeah, no, I
but
don't either, but if she's
but
got to be able to do it.
but when we got to that part where it looked like she was, I'm like, oh shit.
Oh yeah.
I kind of like this.
Uh-huh.
I wanted to see. I want to see where this goes. And
Because I like the idea of instead of a legacy character just coming back to get killed,
yeah,
I like the idea of a legacy character coming back and being the killer. Because they keep alluding to it. They keep going, all these people with all this trauma, one of them's gonna eventually be the killer, but
they said that
never
in this
they
movie,
never
too.
are. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
it would be interesting, and they did new stuff in this movie, including the opening, which I feel like, in order to keep this franchise going, you have to reinvent it. You have to do new things.
Yep.
And having her not really, because at the end of the day, you don't know if like Bailey could have been lying when he called, or it could have been true also when he called, right?
Uh-huh.
So you don't really know, and we have to admit Kirby was a little off. Like
She totally was. But that's
a little off.
I get that it can be explained away from literal PTSD.
Yeah.
Like she's changed a lot. Also, the
Yeah.
fact that she got stabbed in the same place.
Yeah.
She got the same stab wound again.
Same stab wound again.
Which is how Randy was saved the first time, right? Because Dewey was saved after his second stabbing because of his scar tissue. They said.
Right. Okay.
So I like the idea that that's kept her alive the same way it kept Dewey alive.
But see, they also might want to use Kirby as like the new Dewey.
Yes, and that's what I think it actually is. But I hope instead of Dewey turning, like when Dewey turned into a drunk, she turns into a killer.
That could work.
Well, there's a couple of weird continuity things. Like, why did I can't think of her name, the girl, besides Sam and Dara, like I can't remember the other two's name at all.
Quinn.
When she gets stabbed in the subway,
Quinn and Chad.
They're using they have the new mask instead of the old mask, which is
because weird. I thought old mask was for Dad.
No, all three of them had the old mask. They had the first three killers.
Well, no, I meant I thought they were playing the part, and this was them finally getting involved.
I thought when they all revealed all three masks that they all had.
Did they?
They dropped the old mask, but they dropped the old mask when they attacked.
It's the only one I've seen. It's the only one I've seen once, so I don't.
They killed someone and they dropped the old mask because they collected the mask. But of course, Detective Bailey, he's confiscating all the masks anyway. Right. So I mean,
right.
So it's.
I hated him in Shameless, and I felt very justified in continuing. I'm like, I shouldn't hate him because I don't like what he did to Fiona. But then seeing him in this movie, I'm like, and then he ends up being the killer. I'm just like, I knew it. You're the worst.
He played crazy pretty well, actually.
He did, because it's the whole like keeping it contained, and then once it's not always perfect when the killer has to go nuts at the end.
Yeah, and he kind of like because for a second there again, you thought it was Kirby, and then they're doing this face off, which is very much like 1, where they're doing this face off, and 2, where you're just like, who's what? Yes. And then you see them coming behind him, and Kirby's ready to fire, and he shoots her, and they're just like, oh shit. But you know what really got me was when they were trying to figure out who like was in that second mask, and Tara actually said Mindy. Like she
was ready for it.
I
thought it was Mindy.
Yeah. Yep. Did you think she was dead? I didn't think she was dead. I actually called it. I whispered to my friend in the movie.
I was like, yo, is that Mindy? I'm like, is this Mindy? But then I'm like, no, it can't be Mindy. But then I'm like, okay.
I thought it was Quinn until they said Mindy, and I swapped immediately as soon as they said it, because that's way more of a mind-blowing moment.
Yeah.
That's a Scream ending. Mindy turning, and she was working with these people the whole time, and she was dead. That's Scream. Right. But my initial thought was also Quinn. But the movie totally wrapped me up, and I was like, no!
Man, it was so...
Randy turned bad.
I thought that's where it was going for a second, and I loved it, by the way.
It was so good.
I love that.
good.
But I love the fact that they actually called her name, because by her calling her name, it made me think it too.
Mhm.
I'm just like, yo, the brilliance of that even now, to make
Yep.
the character call the name,
Oh yeah, it's
to
like,
make the audience think it as well. And that's what happened. I'm like, oh,
well, she says it so assuredly too.
yeah.
She doesn't question it. She's saying it like that's who it has to be.
But see, and that just makes it think like, okay, well, Tara is at the place where she doesn't trust anybody,
Nope.
right? And but see, okay, now this goes
They've
to my
gone full
statement,
Sydney at this point.
and that's going to my statement about Sam. And what Six did for me with Sam is this. I'm gonna say this, and I know that a lot of Scream people are not gonna like this, but I'm gonna say it. I think Sam has more stake in the game than Sydney, because Sam is someone that, like, you look at Sydney's trauma, she's victim the whole way. She's like her mom, and then this happened to her. But Sam is like, she has some trauma, and she has some internal stuff with her own father that she feels as if like she's not right. She doesn't believe she's right,
She's not.
and she's not. But that affects who she is, and that affects how she goes through this whole process. So I would almost argue to say, like, man, Samantha might be a stronger character at the end of the day.
I mean, I agree with that, because Sydney unfortunately came out of the 90s where she was boxed in so quickly.
Sure.
Like, Sam got the breath and the openness to be a 2020 era character, woman of color, which is just layers on layers, and they allow the layers to be there.
And
I think she's a better character because she's allowed to be. Sydney is great, and it's a great story and everything, but Sam feels more real.
I agree.
She
And
just
then,
feels like that's somebody who's dealing with some like schizophrenic psychosis,
she is,
and then has some fucking crazy trauma dumped on top of it.
I mean, and when she kills, she's going to work.
Oh, she's doing it.
She ain't just like, I'm going. She's like,
no,
I'm in.
yeah, she's in.
And you're not thinking about the real trauma, like their bitch of a mother, Sarah and Tara. Like that bitch is never around, doesn't call, doesn't always outside of the situation. I'm not sure if they're reading that or like they're really trying to play that this mother doesn't give a shit.
It doesn't seem like she like
right.
And that's why I think
they brought it up in
like
this
even
movie.
Sydney's
the whole
dad like interacted in two, right? Like, hey, are you okay? Like it wasn't a big scene, but like it was there, you know.
Yep. Oh, I know. Yeah. What,
and I think that's where Seven is going, huh?
Possible.
I still wait for him to be a killer.
Who?
Sydney's dad. I'm always ready for him to be a killer.
Like, that's where I think Seven's going. I think Seven, like, I mean, I think back to 5, and I think back to where, like, if we're going with like the whole Scream 1, 2, and 3, right? 3 was in like LA, right? And I like the whole movie
the
angle.
Roman, the single killer,
right? And I like the whole angle of the, like what you were saying, Travis, about the whole Richie movie being finished.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if you premiered that in London. And I say London because remember in Scream 5, that's where Sam's mother was. Sam's mother was in
That's
London.
where she did business and traveled to. Yeah.
It'll be the first Scream that's international.
Scream International. I'd read that comic.
Like Scream, like Ghostface in London, like Jack the Ripper. I mean, come on. In
American Werewolf.
Exactly. like, and you're premiering, you know, the only thing you have to figure out is like, why would Sam and all of them be there in London, right? That's what now unless they're visiting their mother.
They get invited to the premiere.
Maybe the mom dying in London under what seems to be normal causes is what brings the daughters to go to London.
Yeah.
And that's how we get London. And it ends up the killer is using more nefarious means and isn't just a knife wielder. This one, there was so much guns.
Yeah. Grocery store.
But what's the word for it? There's
bodega?
a word for the bodega. Yes, That bodega scene was great.
It was great. It was great.
Ooh.
That bodega. But see, there was but the Gale scene was great.
Oh.
The apartment scene was great.
Yep.
With the
Also,
ladder.
she had an age-appropriate lover for her wealth and status,
And
which I thought was great.
and who got stabbed up easily.
Yeah, he did so quickly. That dude was gone.
And I like her offhanded comment. So him being so strong wasn't enough. Yeah, it appears not.
Nope.
Yeah.
Most of the killers,
He ain't Dewey, I guess.
most ghost faces are super scrawny, anyways.
No, I like the aggression. The only thing that you could tell, the only thing that I don't like about it, I really wish they had a little bit more time where they could, because you could tell, like, because Sydney, it was up till production started where Sydney was still the script. So you could feel like there was a disconnect, like the opening scene being like, is it about the movie? And then at the end, it's really about the fucking movie. It's about you being a bad parent and like feeding into the movies.
Yep. Right.
it's those things. So there's a little disconnect. And I've actually been scouring the internet to find like, all right, what would have Sydney done? Because
What was the original intent?
Yeah,
the shrine had to be, but they said the major plot points were all the same.
But what would she have done? I wonder. Like, I mean, the only thing I could think of is like her role. Like, I think of maybe Kirby's role being more limited with Sydney coming in, and but Sydney was never FBI, so
Right.
so it would be kind of weird. I just feel like, and that's the thing. I feel like this movie didn't need Sydney at all.
Correct. I actually don't think you need Sydney going forward. Like I
don't
like
think
This
I
was
like
a great
Sydney, but I don't think you need
send-off. This was...
Yeah, I
like the
forward.
fact that she took her kids and she hid. She doesn't want anything. She wishes she's
Yeah.
alive, basically.
Well, the beauty of doing this is then it Scream like 9.
Right.
She can come back,
Right.
and that's when her story actually finishes.
But see, the only way now, so it's interesting.
She has to die.
But see,
She
I don't
has
think,
to.
I
No,
don't think.
she for sure has to.
I understand,
She,
but
I get that a story, poetry, letting one character go off into the sunset, and they finally are smart and they don't go where the killer's going. That's fine. This is horror movie logic. She has to come back and die.
What are you talking about?
You
Jason
get to leave the franchise.
Jason
You
Mike
die.
Myers in every movie.
But wait, the only way this works, to be honest with you, and I think they should do this, honestly. The only way this works is if, and I think they keep setting this up, to be honest with you. I feel like, have you noticed in all the movies how much Stu is disrespected?
Oh, so much.
Have you noticed? Like Stu
So
is,
much.
like they forget his name. They don't say anything. Like I
Right.
feel like there has to be someone who's like, okay, fuck this. Look, Stu.
If it wasn't for this crazy guy, it never would have jump started.
Exactly. I feel like that person is the person that needs to go after Sydney. Like, okay, let's
Stu fanatic.
a Stu fan. Let's take this back a second. This begins with Sydney, and then like in Scream 8 or 9, where like you go like Sydney, she's married, she has kids, and Ghostface shows up in her house with her kids.
And it's
like
Sam.
It get huh?
Sorry.
Oh.
It's Sam.
That'll be fucked up, by the way. But it has
would
to
be.
be. It has to be something to do with Stu to go back to Sydney.
I like
This-
that.
I
The
mean,
final thread that hasn't been like looped back on.
yeah,
Well,
and I think that's 8, 9, and 10.
I think
Ooh,
that
a
that's
trilogy
why
to
they
kill
kept,
Sydney.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's
I
why they
like
kept Gail alive. I think that
Yeah.
because Gail's death would have been perfect there, but I think like
That's when she
someone
should have
in the
died.
execs- Yeah, but I think some of the execs was like, let her die protecting Sydney because she
Yeah.
needs to get in the way and take a stab
Or
and die protecting Sydney.
or Sam, the new Sydney. Like,
yeah, she needs to protect someone and die
she
because
needs a
that's her arc.
hero's death. She
Yeah,
needs a
she needs
hero's death, not
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, I couldn't
100%.
believe that this is her first time getting a phone call. Like,
it's her
It-
first time.
was like, this is
I love
fucking
the fact that the
crazy.
killer said
I
it,
felt
too.
like an idiot when they said that. I was like, oh my god. Yeah,
That's
because
right.
I never noticed that.
Right.
Like
she's never
talked
been
to the
attacked
killer.
like that either. She's never been attacked like that.
She's
never.
talked to them by getting the phone.
Mhm.
She grabbed the phone from somebody and talked to them. But she's never gotten the call. And then she's never been attacked specifically.
Right.
She ran away in 2.
Well, she's always been like in the area where Ghostface was trying to get her, like
Yeah,
in
she
2 and in
she
3.
she did the one of my favorite scenes and was in 2 when she's in the booth
studio. Yeah.
and she's like Dewey's banging on the on the
Mhm.
window trying to get her attention, and she's not turning around because you never turn around in horror movies.
Right.
And just in time to see the stab and her like
Yeah.
buckling under the pressure. But yeah, it's crazy she's never gotten a phone call.
First one, but see, that has to be the first
How do you not target Gail?
several.
It's because she's the one who tells the story, and if you kill the storyteller, you don't get your story told.
Sure.
Oh, there you go.
And this is the first killer that didn't care about the story being told. They just wanted to murder.
I do like the line that she says where it's all about TV dramas, the made for TV. Like,
Yes,
I was like,
that was great.
that's what we need. We need someone who's like investigating, like trying to interview them for like a made for TV movie while
Yes.
Scream happens. Like,
Yes.
there's, like reinductions of stuff. Like, you could not even have your main characters in it. You could have a one-off movie where like they're doing that and then someone tries to murder them while they're
So it's the documentary style Scream.
yeah, it would be great.
I love that. It's like How to Make a Murderer, but it's
Scream.
an hour 50-minute Scream movie.
Right.
Oh my god, I love that.
I've heard that they're going to try to do a Scream season 4 for the TV show.
Yeah. They said in the they actually said I watched a Radio Silence thing. I got to send to Brian today. And one of the things they said, they really want to do the stab movies as B movies in between years of Scream and spread it out.
Amazing.
Make them B level horror crazy.
Oh wow,
so
that'd
good.
be crazy. That'd be crazy. It's funny because I'm reading. I'm actually reading.
I have to pee.
Oh, here it is. The Final Girl support group.
Yeah.
I'm actually reading that now, and it actually so it's chronicling it's fiction, but one of the fictional stories, one of the fictional movies that exists in this book is actually Stab.
Nice.
It's interesting to me. So each of the Final Girls have like a similarity between one of the slasher horror movies that we know, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre,
Sure.
like Jason.
Freddy, Jason.
Yeah. And so they have one girl who is similar to actually Scream, and they call the killer the Ghost. And so the movie Stab is actually mentioned in here to represent the movie that was made off of her story.
Right.
So it's interesting to see where they can go with that, because I really didn't understand until, I think at the end of 6, where I say the end credits, where Fun World, of course, owns the rights to Ghostface.
Right.
So even this book using the Ghost is they just have to get the rights from Fun World. So Ghostface isn't a Scream thing; it's a Fun World thing, made famous, of course, by Scream. But it's very interesting to see, because I would be interested to see the Stab movies. I would be interested to see how they would. I don't know. I think they kind of gave the foreshadowing of like what Mindy was saying about how it's a franchise. So what exactly does that mean when she says that? How far does this go? And is there an end to it?
Right.
Maybe there isn't an end. I mean, the thing about it is you don't have people returning from the dead to kill people. You just have new people who's just taking up the mantle, which is plausible.
And it's what makes Scream special, right?
Yes.
It's the motive behind it, and then the extra layer for us horror fans is the commentary on horror that they're going to give us with that, right?
Yeah.
This one was clearly kids, influencing and encouraging these kids to watch movies that they shouldn't be watching at a young age, and letting them buy all these props and letting them live out that fantasy. That's kind of the message from this one. The last one was, toxic fandom. Before was the fame of being a survivor, living that and doing it. The fame of that, et cetera, back from the beginning. Even the second one was, people don't give it enough credit, but the second one was pretty good. I want the trial, baby. He wanted the O.J. Simpson stuff. Like
Mhm.
that's all he wanted. Because that's where the thing was, like playing this all back.
Yeah.
Now, as a writer, I have to ask you a question. That opening scene with the two killers who we never got to see, which is great because there's
Mhm.
really technically 5 killers in this movie.
Yes, I
It's
loved it. I
wild.
loved it.
Did you not go? I wonder how hard it would be to get the rights to write that story up to that point. Because that's what I thought. I was like, oh, there's a plot hole with a ghost face that I could write something.
I would look. I would love to like. So my thought on that, because honestly, up until he got to his apartment, I was thinking the story was gonna go a different way. Like when he got
Right.
the phone call, I was like, "Oh, that's gonna happen. Ooh, that's interesting." Because you know what I thought was gonna happen? I thought that we were gonna watch a ghost face interact with the characters while still being a ghost face. I knew that there's gonna be another ghost face.
Sure, yeah.
But I thought that at least we'll be able to watch one ghost face interact while another ghost face like did whatever.
I
So
actually think that would have been a better movie on some level, is having one ghost face known and then the other one kind of puppeting him like a mastermind.
yeah,
Like, and being like, I need you to kill, blah, blah, blah. Like, the Ghostface is getting the Ghostface call.
right,
to murder
right.
somebody.
And that's where I thought it was going to, where more even so, like, you know, they were just operating on 2 separate schedules even now,
Right.
where like, but I get where they went with it, and I think it's great for opening. So
Oh, yeah.
so I'm not mad at it, but initially I thought it was going to be like this guy who has killed the professor is going to now interact with like the people he really wants to kill until he eventually gets killed too. They just killed him earlier than I thought.
Yeah.
So as a writer, I feel like, well, see, I feel like that was their first kill, wasn't it? Like that was the first kill.
He said that that was his first kill. That doesn't mean that Greg didn't do a kill or whatever. He said that that was his first kill.
That would be interesting. And that would be interesting to see, like, you know, did Greg have a kill before that?
Right. So there's some plot there. Like if, again, this is probably our comic thing. You know, we grab that little bit of key. Oh, there's a story there. I can write it.
Because even so, he even said like, "Yo, we promised we wouldn't use the voice on each other." So
Right.
they had this whole conversation,
Right.
this whole conversation about how this would work, right? And then how did that ghost face even get Greg? How did they even know?
Right.
So
And
there's a lot there.
what was their plan? You know, that's a whole comic book or story that we could see, like alternate screens. Like what was their plan?
Well, that's
Because-
what season 4 should be.
Oh,
The alternate? Oh, that'd be so good.
that would be dope. And you see that even though that was, I forgot his name, but if that was his first kill, maybe Greg had killed several people before that.
Right. Yeah.
We
They
didn't
only
even
say
know.
that it was his first kill. They didn't say that it was Greg's first kill. They said,
Yeah, they said we were going to wait to do it together,
right.
but that doesn't mean he wasn't a killer before they had this plan going.
Right.
He could have been more experienced, and that's why he was the first target to get rid of before going after college boy, which I was listening in.
I
So,
loved him. I love that college boy. Like I would have that.
I love your idea, Brian. If he could have been with the group
Yeah.
and been a part of it, and then halfway through they find out he was a killer, but then like they're
Yeah.
all in it together. There is a cool story there to be had.
That's where I thought they're going with it. I'm just like, yo,
pretty cool.
I've never seen this in Scream before. Like, you're going to interact with the killers because he had already interacted with Tara, like momentarily.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I'm just like, okay,
And knew Sam.
Sam and knew Sam because they were in the same.
Called her out and been like, "Hey, is she going to be at the party?"
Right, because Tara and him were in the same film class, I guess. But of course, Sam is not in school.
No.
So,
No.
But they all knew each other.
So they had to be friendly to some degree, and that means he hung out with them at some point.
That's a whole backstory right there.
That's
whole
creepy.
Yeah, that's a whole backstory.
Yeah.
He's out there being Ghostface, and
Yep.
nobody knows. And nobody knows.
That was also the first time we saw a Ghostface dismember a body,
True.
because they put Greg into a refrigerator. Everyone's always just stabbed, gutted at most. Like the first stab. Holy shit! I'm going way too meta. The first scream, we see like the crazy disembowelment
Mhm.
in like the tree scene
Mhm.
with Drew and all of that, but it's usually just stabs. This was the first time that they like took apart a body, threw it in a fridge, and that's pretty intense.
The whole family, and here's where you kind of go Texas Chainsaw Massacre here, right? Where the whole family
Yeah,
kind of was just
family.
not right.
Yeah.
Quinn
Yep.
wasn't right. Ethan wasn't right. Detective Bailey wasn't right. Richie
Freaking
wasn't
Leatherface.
Yeah, and how that's one of the things that I thought about, and maybe I'm just thinking into it because all these movies have holes, right?
right.
Like Gail, wouldn't she have researched this family, like when she wrote her book?
Yeah, like
she
who's
would know
Richie?
the faces.
Like
And why?
would have reached out for an interview with the family.
Right.
Yeah.
It makes me think that Detective Bailey wasn't his name because I don't think
Well,
Richie.
yeah, Bailey wouldn't be his last name because it would be Richie Harsh or whatever it is.
Yeah,
Well,
like
is that Richie's real name?
Hirsch. Hirsch.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. Yeah.
Is
I think
it?
that's Richie really.
Oh, it could be. I guess it could be a pen name.
That could
for
be
movies.
a fake name, that false
Yeah.
identity that lives on,
Yeah,
because
because I
that's
mean,
what he assumed.
if you even think about it, like, so you have Richie all the way in California, and you have Detective Bailey, in New York. So they're all the way across the country, right? And I don't
Yeah.
think he just moved across the country after this happened. I'm assuming that he's already in New York. This is his job,
Right.
and his son gets killed, and now it becomes like, hold up, wait a minute. And this kind of just changes. He probably already had these. I mean, he's a homicide cop, or whatever, anyway. So he already probably has these things, and their family has been into horror anyhow.
Yeah.
So it's like it kind of just brings it forward to where he just like, and he probably really buys into the fact that Sam is actually a killer.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
And at the end of
He
the
did
day,
kill her son.
She did. She
Yeah.
is a killer.
I mean, at
It's
the
just
end of the
justified
day,
killing.
she is a killer.
Yeah.
I mean, like, she doesn't just. This is like, for example, you don't like Sydney would never do that. Like, Sydney's not is not
No.
going to go like crazy, just cutting people up.
She stabs and then shoots,
Right?
and that's it.
Yeah, she's not
nice
a
and
killer.
clean and just is done.
Yeah, Sam is like, I enjoy this, and she.
Well, they
even
said
said
what,
it, like,
20? They said 22, 21, 22. Like, she knew how many times she stabbed Richie.
Mhm.
Like, more than needed.
Yeah, like she didn't
Like,
just.
based
It's
on
there.
Chad's living, I'm not sure. Like Chad got a few stab wounds and he's fine. So maybe 22 is what you need in the street.
Yes, that's what-
Chad. I mean, how did he survive?
I love
Okay.
that. It's a really good trope that, like, they're literally flipping the trope on its head.
Right.
Where, like, instead of Chad being like the obvious, like, oh, he's gonna die, he's like the survivor of the survivors. He keeps getting stabbed in the like.
They're doing the Dewey. Like he's
He's
getting
Dewey.
the same amount of.
Dude,
Yeah, and
This-
he's
this guy
gotten
need to be in a
stabbed
wheelchair.
so many times.
huh?
Yeah,
He needs to be in a wheelchair, yo.
right? Oh
I
no,
mean, if Dewey was limping, he needs to be like something.
dude, that dude's he's messed up now.
Dude,
There's-
him being in a wheelchair would be really good. And we've seen, like,
Would
if you're a
be.
Child's Play fan, like the horror you can do with somebody in a wheelchair. Like, I'm not kidding. Like that
Yeah.
movie was legitimately scary because she couldn't just run away. Like,
that's
Right.
I know
Tara.
Chucky's different than
That's Tara in 5.
right. It's true. It's true.
When she was literally in a wheelchair trying to get away, and man. And then Dewey doesn't shoot. That's my only issue with 5. Dewey's a seasoned vet. He walks to the elevator, comes or sorry,
He was about to shoot. He was about to, but Gail called him.
but I'm saying he even walked away without shooting in the head.
Yeah.
That man has been stabbed so many
You
times.
should have known, dude.
But he went back.
He
for
would
the
have
kill.
reloaded there and shot in the head. There's no way he would have walked away
He was
from
like,
that.
wait a second.
And then I would have been shooting from a distance. I'm not getting up close.
But I loved what Sam said about how, like, and you actually saw it when it happened, right?
Mhm.
When like the dad is talking to her and he's going
Yeah.
in, and like her whole thing switched, and she said, "No, he was a pussy." He was
Yes.
a lip dick pussy who
Oh,
could, and you were like,
so
oh
good.
shit.
Yep.
And you knew right then that, well, one, Sydney would never say that. And
Sure.
two, like,
No.
you're fucking with the wrong person right now. Sam is going to kill you. Sam is
Yep.
going to kill you right now.
Yeah, they
She's gonna
dicked
kill you.
around way too much with her,
Oh, yeah.
which
She's
is
a killer.
great. It's the killer hubris.
When Billy told her to get that knife and she got it, it was all over.
She opens that cabinet and grabs the knife. Oh, and then she just, it just goes so naturally into her hand and
What
everything.
really was
Oh.
crazy for me was when like he was begging her. Like, no, he was like, thank you for not killing me. Thank you. Like he literally was saying thank you. And I'm just like, that's not the way to go, bro. Because she's
Right?
going to kill you.
Yep.
And all she needed was one look from Tara. And
Right.
Tara gave her the look like, are you gonna let him do this?
Look what he did.
And that's the thing with Tara though, because I think she's now kind of torn.
Well,
Because
yeah. Well, I think Tara has to die so that Sam can be the killer. If Tara never dies, I don't think Sam ever becomes the killer. As long as Tara's alive.
I hope, here's my deal. I hope that Scream takes that step. I think that's a step that has to be taken.
Right.
And it like you look, you've painted Sam as conflicted person, and honestly, you haven't created a way for her to heal from it. You haven't created a way for her to heal from it. All you've allowed her to do is kind of exist in it and use it to her advantage. And I don't think you can kind of go to 7 and say, oh, here's how she's going to heal. I think what you have to do is let her run her story arc and understand where she's going with this. And the place that Sam is going is she's Billy's daughter. And even though she might not want to be, this is who she is.
Right.
And I think it should be tragic. It needs to be Shakespearean, I think.
I think they're just going Dexter with her. It's
You
the
think she's just gonna be
funneled. It's the funneled psychosis towards evil instead of against the innocent. I think they're just going to treat her like a Dexter. You're going to go kill the other killers, but I think they should pull the trigger on make her the killer out of maybe 2 more movies. Let it build up to be too much where she just breaks.
I think. See, for me, I feel like so Sydney had 1, 2, like 1, 2, and 3. 4 to me is a bridge. 5 and 6, I feel like 7, 5, 6, and 7 to me has to be the Carpenter story. And I feel like 7, you have to bring it all home with the mother, the father, and you have to kind of resolve what's going on between them. And then you have to decide who Sam is going to be. And I think you're right. I think Tara dying is the one thing that makes her say, I'm all in on this. And
what else do I have?
And I'm a hunt ghost faces.
They also said
Kirby together.
They said core 4 too many times. That shit's someone's got to die.
That's my thing. Like, if there was anything that kind of bothers me, it was like I needed someone from the core 4 to die. But when they started saying core 4, I knew, like, okay, no one's going to die. And but then I saw Chad get stabbed. I'm like, oh, he ain't coming back from that. But then he did come from back.
Stabbed a lot.
Stabbed a lot. It was 2 against 1.
He got stabbed a lot.
And so my thing is like, okay, in 7, one of the core 4, 1 or 2 have to die.
Yeah.
And
I think it's the twins.
I think Mindy's going to survive. I think it's going to be.
When did Randy die? He
Randy
died in 2. Right?
She survived 2. She survived.
She survived 2. So I think
she even called it in the van. She called it in the van.
Right.
But remember,
I think she's got 1 more.
Well, we also have legacy characters too. So now we have too many survivors. Like we have
Exactly.
too many of that, and that's not counting ones we haven't even like. There's still survivors that are back there that haven't shown back up.
Yep.
You know, Kirby was dead until literally 5. You know,
Right.
a message in 5 that stuff. So you got to do something if we're going to do that. I think they're going to put Kirby back on the shelf. I don't think we're going to see Kirby for 7. Unless she's a killer, unless she's a
Yes. Yeah.
because her role, it's her or Sydney, and if you can pick one, you try to get Sydney back. Like I think the movies are better without Sydney, but I understand like from a marketing perspective and money wise.
And she has to die wise.
Eventually, but again, Jamie Lee Curtis, man, like they won't kill that bitch.
But that's why they need to do it.
They can't kill Sydney in 7 because she's not in 6.
It won't be. It won't be. It has to be at least a 2-movie arc.
8, yeah, 8, 9, 9, and 10.
I think it's the next trilogy.
Yeah. 8,
I
9,
think it's
and
after
10.
7's gonna figure out who the core 4, the real survivors are of the core 4. Because I could also see maybe it's Chad. It'd be fucking hilarious if Chad is the sole survivor.
I do, but I think you're right with Tara. I think Tara for Sam has to go.
Right.
100%.
And you don't want to kill Tara because I mean, let's out of movie stuff matters. Like she's hot right now.
Yeah.
like you gotta keep her alive and keep her locked onto those contracts as much as you can.
And she's the most like Sydney. Anyways, out of
she
the
was
whole
so
group,
good. Like the extra giving, I think because Sydney didn't come back, she got she kind of filled a different role, and I think that they made her character a character because I didn't care for her in 5. I was like, whatever, she.
I was just pissed off with her most of the time. I
like that she survived. I like that. Like I thought that was cool. Like having having someone get stabbed in the opening scene and survive. Like that was cool.
That was neat.
That was neat.
But maybe you just go all in and you do make Sam a killer, and you make Sarah. I mean, excuse me, Sarah. You make Tara like question like, is this Sam? Because she really never questions Sam, but at towards the end, she looks at Sam like, okay, like, and maybe in 7, Tara really begins to question this, like, who are you really? Maybe Sam is just a tragic character. Like maybe she doesn't get a hero's arc.
I think if Tara dies, it's in keeping Sam alive. And then she breaks the next movie.
Well, in mind you, going back to that, like I still think there's a very big possibility that there's going to be found footage of Stu in the next movie. I don't think they're bringing Stu back, but I think they found footage. But imagine if she has one of her psycho things in the movie and they talk to her, and now you've got Billy and Stu in her ear, and that changes her because that could be wild and awesome.
That would be really cool. Where Billy introduces her to Sam to Stu in her mind, and it's Billy and Stu because he's still doing stuff. That dude's still he's on Critical Role every once in a while. It's really funny. He just like shows up.
Oh, he was on he was in Scream 5.
Yeah.
He was a Scream that's in the with the flamethrower.
Yeah. I'm just he's still alive and relevant and able to just like fill the role.
It has to come back to Stu, I think.
Oh yeah.
I would love for her to come back to Stu.
That would be cool. So let's run this out with our rankings.
Oh, here we go. Okay. Oh my goodness. I don't know if I can do this.
Why don't you both go first?
I don't know if I can do this,
Least favorite. We'll start with least favorite. Well, let's go round robin. We'll go with least favorite.
Scream 3.
It's sad because I like every one of them. I have things that I like about them. So it's tough, but I might agree with you.
I'm writing mine down right now.
Me too. That's what I'm doing too.
You guys do it.
I have to look.
I think I've got it pretty set. I will tell you, when I watch him back, though, every time I watch him back, I always have more appreciation for 2 because it tried really hard to be really, really good. It's just It's just you can't take a woman from Roseanne as a killer,
Right?
I think
Oh,
that's it.
yeah. I was gonna bring that up at some point where like that is like it ruins a lot. The ending can
Right.
wreck things, and
Oh my goodness!
her being one of the killers really hurts the whole movie a lot.
Oh,
And you gotta dissuade a lot of stuff. Remember, because she lost a whole bunch of weight and had
Yeah.
a script to do it, like very like crazy like sleepaway camp shenanigans.
So much, yes.
I made my rankings, y'all, and I can't believe I did it, yo.
All right. What's final? What's the last? What's at the? We're going back to forward.
My last is Scream 2.
Okay.
Scream 2.
Okay.
Sorry, Todd.
It's okay to be wrong.
Sorry, Todd. Sorry.
It's okay to be wrong.
It's it's fucking crazy.
I have my explanation stuff.
My debate is between 3 and 2 for my least favorite.
No, that's mine too, and I have a couple reasons why I put Scream 2 last. I have a couple reasons.
Let's hear them, because I just heard a very compelling argument from Travis about why.
Look. If this had been like when Scream 2 came out, I obviously wouldn't say this, but hindsight, like my problem with Scream 2, hindsight is that one, I feel like okay, I have the whole problem of them killing Randy. Although I think it was a bold move, I do think at the same time, I think Randy had more story, and they knew that, which is why they brought the video for Scream 3.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that was...
They knew it was bold, but it wasn't the time.
Nope.
They made a mistake there.
3 would have been the time to do it.
Yeah. 2, the cinematography on that whole car scene bothers me. That whole car scene when like Sydney and Ghostface and her friend are in the car. I'm just like, that's just
and creeping out over him and everything and trying to get out. And then they get out and it's just like,
yeah. And McConnell as her boyfriend, the whole singing thing. It was like, this is just really extra for Sydney. I'm just
that's interesting because that's like one of my endearing moments from that is like Sydney, in my brain, Sydney needs somebody who can't be in the shadows because if they're at all like kind of sort of able to blend in, it makes them way scarier. But the fact that he's loud and out there and like has all these friends and is super social, it's the anti-Billy.
But she still trusted him.
She should have.
No. I'm sorry. She still didn't trust him in the end.
Oh, I was like, as she should have. But no, that's the problem is even though he was literally the anti-Billy, she still couldn't commit to the fact that he wasn't the killer.
And I'm sorry, go ahead.
The best part about Scream 2 as well that other people give a lot of credit is Joshua Jackson's character in the film class. Like he's like you're like he's gonna be the killer. And
you need more time.
We never see him again. We're like I'm pretty sure Joshua Jackson's a killer. Like I don't know how. We don't see him again.
Why did he get more time? I would have picked him too. I mean, I think he could have killed this.
All right.
Yeah, I think if you gave him another scene, people would have thought he was the killer till the end.
I guess I didn't like Mickey either. Like, Mickey was. I get what he was going for.
Okay.
All right. I'm convinced it's 2.
6 for 2 for you.
Yep.
You're both wrong, but that's all right.
We're all entitled to wrong opinions.
Okay. You know, Scream 3 had Jay and Silent Bob on it for no reason.
I
love Jay and Silent Bob.
Oh, see, you have.
That was totally because of the Weinstein. The Weinstein made that happen.
Well, he can make other voices.
Yes,
he had new tech.
Yes,
Scream 3.
Oh
it was ridiculous.
God. Yeah, and where did that go? Right. Why isn't 4, 5, 6 using that ability to sound just like
That's
everybody?
Proving why it should be at the bottom.
Stupid. Which is why 3 is my number 5.
Same.
I've got with a heavy heart Scream 2 at 5. I don't want it there. I want it higher. I need worse Scream movies to come out so I can put it higher. In fact, I want to add the Scream series so I could just put these up.
Yes.
But wait, Rome. See, here's my thing with Scream 5. I mean Scream 3. So look, I love how they were able to link everything that happened in 1 and 2 to one person. I like that, and how Roman kind of orchestrated the whole thing. And I like his motivation. I like how frazzled he is. I like his banter with Sydney. And I'm just like, him and Sydney really, like, they're
The
very
handhold.
similar. Like,
Handhold
feel
at the
like-
end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it was really, I think, honestly, a great end to Sydney's story. And it kind of, like, really, like, I could be satisfied with Scream 1, 2, and 3.
And that's why I put 3 above 2 ultimately, is because the killer is such an important aspect to the movie. And 1, it's the only single killer in the franchise so far until Sam becomes a killer.
Yeah.
Though hold on, Chubb, before you say that, there is a fan theory. If you go deep for Scream 3, there's a second killer, and it's pretty accurate if you go through it.
All
Like, you
right.
should really deep dive one
All
day.
right,
Who
I'll
is it?
check
Who
that
is
out.
it? Who
Who
is
is
it?
it supposed to be?
It's his secretary. His secretary. They can prove that she was the only one who could have done some of the killings, but he kills her. Like, but
she was a part of it before that.
but she was a part of it before that, and
That's
it
cool.
lines up.
I
pretty
like
accurate.
that. See,
Interesting.
that would make 3 even better.
Okay.
So,
I
yeah,
like that
3
too.
because the killer is better. Roman is much better than fucking Billy's mom. That was
And
rough
Millie.
scene.
I mean,
That's a rough scene.
Mickey. I'm not
I
Billy's
like-
mom. I just don't like Mickey.
And how do you not use it until like 4? You don't pop it off at 2, the mom.
Yeah, they used it too early,
Way too early.
Which is, I think, what they're not doing in this arc. They're not using the
Correct.
mom so early. But yeah, true. The mom just pops up all of a sudden.
Yeah, and it's enough time where she's aged some, and she's not doing something so public, like literally beating Gail's face like every 10 minutes.
She's all up.
Gail would have researched what the
Debbie
mom
Salt.
looks like.
But
This is
But the
Debbie
cool thing-
Salt.
the cool thing about that kill, though, when she kills Randy,
Yeah,
like, it's brutal,
It
and you
is.
know it's her
It's true.
because he insults her right before it, gets in the van and murders her,
yep.
and it's a separate kill from all the rest of them. Like, all of them are pretty common. That one's like,
And that one's a I fucking am gonna kill you.
like, you are,
Yeah.
you need to die.
Specifically are
Poor
going to
Randy.
die.
Poor Randy.
All right, next one. This one's yeah, exactly. Ignacio. All right, Brian, you're up for being the firsties. What's
My
number
boy-
4 for you?
My boy is Scream 5.
Ooh, okay.
Scream 5.
Alright.
I look, Scream 5 is solid. I like it even more the second time. Can't get past the first time, which I did like it, but again, expectations of Sydney.
Sure.
It tainted the first one just a little bit. Second time to me was more, I don't want to use brilliant. I definitely liked it more the second time, and I saw like, oh, that's good. But that kind of rounds out my 4. Like, it's solid. It's solid for me, and I like what it sets up for 6.
Yeah. My number 4 is 6. It's fresh. I think it's a good spot for it to be in right now. Maybe it'll raise in my ranks as I get my hands on it at home when I can pause it and rewind and really deconstruct what I'm watching. I don't do that with Scream. I just fucking watch it. But when I have the ability to rewatch it, maybe it'll raise up in the ranks. But I always like to temper because I love it right now. I know I really like it right now because it was new Scream, and it's so tasty. I still had my issues with it. I didn't love Bailey's kids once they turned killers. They were okay. They weren't super convincing to me as killers. Like Ethan, I'm sorry. That kid he pulled off being like harmless dorm roommate so well that once he was the killer, I'm like, okay, dude. All right, little lamb. Oh, sweet summer child. Yeah, you're just a scary killer. I just didn't.
Oh,
I didn't buy
you're
it.
watching Jason Goes to New York. Jason Takes Manhattan. That's so cute.
Oh,
It's
that's so
very
nice.
New York.
Yeah. Oh, you got your little machete. That's so cute. And it just there's a couple things where I'm just like, it's not brilliant, but it's so good. We're at the part of the list where I won't have as many gripes. Like that might be my biggest gripe of the movie was Quinn going from like hypersexual roommate to psycho killer. Totally, that crazy. That's crazy ex-girlfriend written all over it.
Right.
She fits that role perfectly. Ethan, way too convincing as a normie, and didn't convince me as a killer. And the ending is such a big part of Scream for me, so it's at 4 for me.
So same thing for me. I put 4, but the reason why is literally the fake out kills. Like it really bugged me. The doing it 3 times
Sure.
is too much. Killing both the twins.
Yes.
And and then you also got the who else you got? You killed both the twins, and then you killed
Quinn.
What the fuck is her name?
Quinn.
Well, Quinn, and then you've got Kirby. Kirby,
Yeah.
everybody had like this fake out. Like one of those should have died. I also like, and maybe it's just the the amount I've studied film and like storytelling. You can feel that there was another plot that was missing, and they didn't wrap it up nice. And maybe that's again much like your Sting, like you were waiting for Sydney. I was trying to feel where the absence of Sydney was at this point.
Interesting.
So it stayed straight with me, I love.
Yeah.
But I do think it's a solid fucking film.
Oh yeah.
And I do like and I think the motive is a little weak. I really wish they would have played up the like, I enabled this to happen, and that's why. Especially when we start out the movie going, it's not about the fucking movie, kid.
Yeah. Yeah. I was really
no
excited for a
work.
killer that didn't really have any ties to the movies.
But he does.
But he does. Because of it's like
the personal movies. The personal movies.
Yes.
Not Stab. It was just his son.
Yeah.
Right.
But it was the son because of the movies. It's still Who
We
cares?
gotta go back to the movies.
Them, if anything, that's more insulting because you're really sullying your son's name by saying that. No one cares about the fucking movies. Your son did, and he literally died over it. So
And that was such a great ending too, though. The written and directed by Richie.
Yes.
Oh, I was like, oh, that's good.
That was good.
That's good right there. I like it.
All right, Travis, what's your number 3?
Number 3 is 5. I love a requel, and I think that they did enough. They did enough love for me, like through when they went into Randy's our uncle. I was like, of course he is. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And like showing his sister, like
oh my god, that was great.
She existed.
Yeah.
The killing Dewey was so tragic to me, and like even like him going back to finish Ghostface off was so like I've learned. And like, oh, maybe you didn't learn enough.
You're so close to learning.
And just the love of the series and like letting them kind of come together and just the out of struggles, right? You have a divorced couple who met in the movies and them still showing their love for each other.
Yeah.
Like you could feel the love in the scenes that they did. I felt Sydney's response to everything was really good. Like, and even the over the top stuff in that movie was great. The toxic fandom, Richie being a toxic fan, was the best commentary at the right time. because it was right after Star Wars. We still have so many of these fuckers like shit, and we still do like getting mad. Like, how dare you give me a superhero movie that's not fucking perfect? You fuckers! Like, and then get mad and yell and scream, you know.
Yeah.
And then they're like, Creed 3 is the best movie. Like, it doesn't like. Like Creed 3 could be a great movie, but you have to put it on the same lens that you put these superhero movies, right? Like you're not being fair.
Oh, can we do this again? We talk about the Creed movies.
Sure.
I haven't seen it yet, but let me see it first. Let me see it first.
But yeah, I think the toxic fandom is such a like where we're at, and the other thing, and this really means a lot to me, is bringing back Billy.
Mm-hmm.
Bringing back Billy, and knowing Kevin Williamson approved it. Like I found this out after the film, but Kevin Williams approved it. They went to him and was like, "Hey man, should we do this? This is a little like you've never had any supernatural. It's kind of like on the edge. You want to do it?" Kevin Williams is like, "These are your fucking films right now. You need to put your stamp on it to make it special, or we're never going, or it's never going to be this.
Yeah,
right. It's dead. Like you have to put your stamp on it." He's like, "Just we've always kept this in realism." Being Kevin Williamson, take that Wes Craven role, going, these are the things that we've got to do. We've got to stick to these new rules. It's really good, and Kevin Williamson's really good at that.
And that's the beauty of it, is each movie can have new rules because each movie adds more layers. But as long as you abide by the fact that you have rules and they have to be meta in some way, and then you have to stick to those rules, it's so good. And yeah.
So that's why 5 is my number 3.
Nice. Ryan, what's your number 3?
So my number 3 is actually number 1.
Damn, you're killing me here.
Whoa! I love it. I can't wait to hear,
bold statement.
Hear this.
Yeah, I mean,
this is the hot
I really struggled with this. I really did, because number 1 is that thing, and it sets it up for everything else, right? It's classic, and I recognize that it's classic, but what I'm looking at is like time frame. I'm looking at when it was done, 96, right? And I'm thinking about how, wow, this is really the start of Scream. And if I'm going back to me watching it as a senior in high school, how important it is to me, I'm just like, oh my God, this is one of the best things I've ever seen in my life. Then I want to keep it at number 1. But the thing about it is that storytelling evolves. And I think as Scream has gone on, the storytelling has gotten better. And I can't let my nostalgia for number 1 affect the fact that I think the storytelling has gotten better. I think that Scream had a bunch of twists that maybe I've never seen in a horror slasher film before, because you're looking at this slasher whodunit, and it's like, whoa, what is this? And so for forever and always, it'll always be like one of them things where it's hard to beat. And maybe you can't actually beat it, but when you compare it to other Screams, then it's like, well, wait a second, because they're all kind of following the same formula. So for one, I feel like it was just it was classic, but it was the beginning of Scream. It was the novice. It was the beginning. And they had an idea that they didn't know could grow into something even more. And so that's why I had to place it at 3. 1, out of respect, out of what it set as far as a standard, and what they've been able to achieve past that standard that really honestly hasn't been less than the first in really any capacity. We're ranking them, but all Screams are really good.
Sure.
And
it's a great franchise.
1 kind of sets that standard of what it needs to be. And so I'm solid with Sydney. I'm solid with that core cast. I'm solid with who the killers were, how the reveal went, and it was just a great damn movie that just honestly deserves so much respect when it comes to movies and horror films.
Amazing. You're wrong, but I like it. I like
That explanation
like
I'm
why
wrong. I
you're
get it.
wrong. I respect why you're wrong.
I think it goes back. He's on Team Sister with Vineyard too. Is what I'm
That
hearing.
makes sense. See, I get that. It is funny because when he was, I forget exactly what you said, but at some point I was like, "Yeah, it's breaking the system." I hear you. It's like that's not where I put it. My number
I
three,
get it.
I won't talk too much about in terms of its praises because I feel like the other people on this panel are gonna talk about why it's great enough. Four is my number three. If it was shot differently, I could get way more behind it. That Vaseline soft glow soap opera look fucking pulls me out of so many scenes that on rewatch I can get past and I can see the meat of it and I love the story. It's such a cool anchor between these two trilogies, even though it's like a decade apart for some of them. I really love because it's decade apart from almost it's like sits almost exactly in the middle, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Between 5 and 3, and it's great.
2011.
Yeah, and the latest one was 2022.
22.
Yeah.
Sorry. Scream 3 was 02,
03, wasn't it?
03.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, there was like
So
10 years in between the two. Yeah.
it fits right in between. It's this awesome anchor point. I think it's really cool. I do remember being wildly disappointed that there wasn't a 5 that came out, so I'm trying not to factor that in because it took forever to get another one after that. Good movie. It deserves the 3. If it was shot differently and presented the story differently, it might be my number 1 as well. But that's my number 3. My number 2 is the second best movie that's ever come out of it because it's, in my thoughts, the closest to the first one. It's number 5. It's a perfect requel. It brought Scream into this century, which I think they say it at some point in the movie. I don't remember the exact quote, but they talk about the Scream of this century and being a part of it. And it hits. I didn't expect much Sydney, so I think I went in with the right expectations. I was ready for a complete formula break. I'm like, if it's been this long, I figured it's going to be different, and I was ready for anything to be different. And I went in with such a low expectation, and it blew me out of the water. I really love it. It's shot super well. If anything, it might have been my number 1. If six may have lowered it. If they would have killed off one of the core 4, 5 might be higher for me. But I don't like this trend, and it can trend upwards. I don't like 4 survivors. It's very unlike Scream. I don't like that kind of breaking of the formula. But it made me not cringe while being like obviously trying to be of the times. It really like tread that line really well. It's shot beautifully. The cinematography is incredible. It really shows the advancement of just like what horror movies can look like. The maybe one of my favorite scenes in the whole franchise is when what's his name? It's Frosted Tips guy. He was one of the friends.
Wes.
Yes,
Wes.
Wes.
Oh, okay.
His shower scene into walking around and opening and closing the refrigerator and the cabinet and checking the front door and doing all of that is maybe one of the most, in its broad daylight, while you know his mom is dead on the porch, is so suspenseful. It's so good because there isn't is the killer here. It's where is the killer, and it brought that into this century. And it was shot so beautifully, and it was so suspenseful. I loved it so much. I think about that scene so much.
Yeah, Alfred Hitchcock did a good job when he was filming shower scenes because they did it shot for shot.
Yes, yeah, and it transitions from he's asking about the psycho
Right.
and it goes to the Psycho scene, and that's the transition back to Wes, and it's so good.
But isn't that what we're like looking at as far as like, when you look at Scream 1, you look at Scream 5, there's a different level of understanding with filmmaking
Hmm.
that takes place.
For sure.
And, these guys have looked at what's been done before and just like, okay, like, how can we make this better?
Hmm.
And so they're at you know, they have hindsight at their disposal,
Right.
right? To make it even better
Yes.
than what it was before. And they're really just building on what was already there. What not to take anything from them, but they do build upon it
Hmm.
and they do execute it. So I do see what you're saying.
And that's why it's my number 2. I think it is
Yeah.
as perfect of a requel as they could have pulled off without literally just making it a remake. Like,
Yeah.
the only way I think they could have improved upon it was going, we're actually going to reboot the franchise and we're going to start our own rules. And like, they would have had to do a whole reboot. I think this is as good of a, we're
Oh yeah.
keeping everything
I think it's
intact
better
and
for sure.
moving
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
as possible. And that's
Yeah.
impressive to do under 2 hours.
Yeah.
Oh,
They did a
I agree with
lot
that.
in that movie.
well, and
Mhm.
first act high school, second act, jail, third act Billy's house,
Yep,
Stu's house. Right, like it followed the act as well, which is interesting.
it did. Ah, so good.
Did you know that the
No
budget?
garage door hanging though, which I think was really unfortunate because, as improbable as it was, it's maybe my favorite kill of the franchise is just a garage door because
That's
he
always
really
my favorite
shouldn't
thing
be
at
able
Scream
to.
when the killer gets confused of how they killed something or something crazy happens. He's like,
Yeah. Oh. Okay. Do. That worked out.
all right. So your number 2, I assume, is 5 or 4 with me, Brian.
Oh, my number 2.
Yeah.
My number 2 is 6.
Oh,
I was like, he
all
hasn't said
right.
6 yet.
All right. Well, I thought 6 was going to be number 1. I thought I brought it to number 1.
Oh.
Okay, he's keeping 4.
I had a difficult decision to make, and I couldn't let 4 pass number 1.
Okay.
So I went with number 6 for number 2. And my reasons behind that is this: is that for me, because I did go into it some bias originally with 5. 5 became better to me the second time around. 5 became even better to me with 6. And like Richie really became a thing for me
Yeah.
with 6. Like Richie became like that. Like you almost like Richie almost became like you put him up there with like Billy
Mhm.
because like just the gravitas of like who Richie became through social
The
media.
impact afterwards.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, oh shit, I could totally get why this became a thing.
Mhm.
And I think 6 hitting on the power of social media,
Mhm.
the power of making someone a villain
Yeah.
is like very, apropos to like this time. And it fits, especially for Sam. Even how Sam reacts to it. Like she's not backing down to it. She's ready to go at you. Even for it. And even with the initial killers who wanted to kill her and Tara, they were also hooked on the fact of Sam being a villain.
Mhm.
And this whole thing is really about this, again, toxic fandom, but that transitions into who's villains and and who's not. And I think that message is huge. But also I look at like how they really honed in on like the settings. Like they had really 4 or 5 great settings in this film that really honed in on different horror tropes and the intensity of it and going through it and you're wondering who's going to survive, who's not going to survive, because there's at this point that you don't know who's going to survive, and you're wondering what this movie is going to be about. And it kind of left you with this question mark of like, okay, what, who's going to survive in this? Because I don't really fully know like where this is going. I have an idea, but I don't fully know. And what Six does for me that's great is character development. Like Samantha's character from 5 to 6 is like huge for me because I really, again, could be biased from 5, but I really gravitated towards who she was in 6. And I understood her better. I understood her trauma. I understood her wanting to protect her sister. I understood her regret. I understood all of that. Tara, I understood wanting independence and how, okay, that happened, but I want to move on beyond this. Chad, Mindy, like that point where they say, like, they get to this point where they're like, I don't want to be hurt anymore.
Right.
I don't want to hurt anymore. Like, they just didn't want to be hurt.
Yeah.
Like, that's, it's not even killed. They just don't want to be, like, stabbed and hurt anymore. That's like, wow, okay, I can get that. And I think that this movie for me had where the sequel for Scream 1 didn't have the emotional nuances. This sequel had a lot of emotional nuances that I, as a person who write towards the human condition, could really relate to. I'm just like, oh, I totally get that. And that makes sense to me. I can get with that. Even Gail, her scene, her first call, post Dewey, post what Tara said about, even Sam said about her, like, you live, you need Ghostface to even be who you are. Like, she's dealing with all of that while Ghostface is literally calling her, killing whatever guy she's dating, and she's thinking about all of this and trying to survive. I mean, I feel like the emotional level of dealing with what's going on for 6 is just heightened. And going to the cinematography, I feel like this movie was shot so dark. It was a dark film.
Yeah, the bodega, into the apartment, into the subway, into the museum.
Well, and it's
Those-
fast, unlike other Screams. Screams normally have a lull. There was no lull.
No,
There
things
wasn't.
moved
It
and
was like,
it was dark. There was no.
yeah,
We didn't get much daylight at all for the
no,
whole movie, except for like what the
No.
park when they were looking to be bait.
exactly.
That was about it,
Yep.
and then the rest of the movie was in the dark.
Yeah, they wanted you to feel a certain way in this movie, and
Mhm.
I'm like, here, like, I think for 5, they were definitely trying to make sure they reinvent Scream while also making sure to pay homage to the
Yeah,
legendary
honor the
characters.
past while
Yeah,
being the future. Yeah,
in this film, I felt like they had a little. They felt like they had a little more freedom,
sure.
and they wanted to really make this film their own.
Yeah,
And I think they really went into it as like, okay, we built this. Now, how do we make this our own? And I feel like they really made this film their own. Again, I wasn't a huge fan of Samantha. I wasn't against her, but I wasn't a huge fan of Samantha in 5. Again, because of some bias. But in this one, Sam made me feel that I didn't need Sydney.
yeah. I mean,
And for me,
she acted better. The acting was
yeah,
better in it.
her acting
She was more
for
comfortable
me,
in that role.
she was. And yes, as an actor, she was 100% more comfortable in like owning this character, and I felt it. And I'm just like, I enjoyed watching Samantha's scenes.
Yeah.
And when they said hello, Samantha,
Mhm.
I like yo, hello, Sydney.
Yeah.
It's the same to me.
Yeah.
I'm like, I got it. I totally got it at that point.
I
So I'm like, 6 did some amazing things for me.
I think my only disconnect why it's not higher in my rankings from everything you said, because I agree with a lot of what you just said, is my only issue is that disconnect of why um the message of the story, because it feels like it's supposed to be about her being the villain, and like
Mm-hmm.
the perception of the outside world doing that. And then they even did a twist on that, and it ends up that Quinn is the one that started. I honestly wish they omitted that the family started the theory of her being a villain. The fact that they gave themselves credit for that took away from the message, in my opinion, because
Mm,
it wasn't just humanity and the world and social media doing it. It was somebody with
I can see that.
an ulterior motive to do it.
Yeah.
Whereas, I'm sorry, that kind of shit just happens naturally from the hive mind of the internet.
Yeah.
And I think that's the only real problem I have with the killer's ending. With what you said was, I wish that they just couldn't take credit for that. They just used that wave of momentum and be like, perfect, thanks. I can bank on the horribleness of the hive mind of people, of groupthink,
Right.
and
Or even that's
use it.
what drove them. Like
Yes.
like this, like they all want you dead, much like much like mob mentality. Obviously, I'm not a
Yes.
fan of Trump, but like that mob mentality.
Yeah.
There's so many people who push back. You just think he's so horrible, he needs to die. Like, and they push back angrily, like rightfully
Mhm.
so, because their guy. Like, so there's
It's where
that
they're
to
at.
it.
I can see that.
So for me,
Definitely see that.
it's 4. It's 4 is number 2, and the reason why is 4 is the first time in any of the Scream sequels up to that point where I thought Sydney was going to die, because
Mm.
that movie
Did too.
with her
Mhm.
dying
Yep.
would have been fucking awesome. Would have broke my heart.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
the also ending of like, don't fuck with the originals. Like, oh,
Yes.
okay, she gets to live and she gets a good one liner that makes this whole thing make sense. Like, I like
Yeah.
that. And very, very Kevin Williamson. Like, if you study
Mhm.
him, like, because he didn't come back for 3. Part of the reasons why is the restriction from the studio. But the other ones, he's like, I don't have another thing to say. I had something to
Yeah.
say in 1 and 2, but like I don't have something to say. Him coming back for 4 was, oh, so much shit has happened in horror. Like, I need to talk
Yeah.
about
It's enough time to talk
it. Like,
about
and I
it.
hate the opening of 4. Like, I hate the stab into the stab.
Stab into the stab.
Is that
Yeah.
5? Is that 5?
That's 4.
3 was like that too, though. Like 3 was like multiple like openings.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I don't remember if it was 4 or 5, but that opening to no, it's 4. It's 4 because
It's 4 because
4 had a multiple. 4 had multiple openings too, but I feel like 3 had multiple openings too.
yeah, I don't know. I remember 4 being the like thing. Well, no, 3 had the movie. No, 2 had the movie. I don't know.
uh-oh.
It's getting late. But anyway,
Heather
so
Graham was in
Google.
2.
We got to Google.
but for the opening, like I was that opening made me hate that movie. Like, I watched it, I was like, oh, I'm not gonna like this. This is fucking ridiculous. To it loving it, like seducing me back. You remember Woodsboro? Look,
Yeah.
look, we're back. Look, I got these beautiful
Aw.
Look, we put Ghostface
nice.
up because
look
we
at
got
all
a
those-
book signing.
Those
Oh.
crazy high schoolers.
Oh, okay, we're doing a book signing. I'm okay with that. Oh, she's related. Oh, that makes sense. Sydney can have kid friend. Like it made me fall in love, and like literally,
There's a
you're like,
body in her
oh,
trunk. Interesting.
and this is before like really the reboot thing was the requel
Mhm.
thing was an average thing. So it was like, oh,
Yep.
this is a passing the torch movie, because that's
Yeah.
what we had before, like requels,
Yep.
where we're gonna keep all of it together and make everybody important.
Here's
It was
the new
like,
cast.
to George, right? Like, how much your mother, how much your father, let's
Yes.
pass it over.
Yep.
Cheers to Frasier, like it's
Yes.
more done in TV than movies, but we're passing it over.
Girl Meets World.
Girl Meets
the
World, yeah.
classics.
Right. Well, that's more of a requel because they're still there.
It is because they're still there.
Yeah. but it really felt that way, and like they gave us these characters, and you could, this is the new Randy, this is the new this, and then to have that ending and like, wait, she's the back, and she's gonna kill our main characters. And
Yeah.
no, they're all in the hospital. Like, it's done. This bitch won. Good for her. I don't know where the fuck we're going from here, but I'm all in.
Right.
And then it wasn't, and it was
Yep.
beautiful. I think
Oh,
we
yeah.
lost Brian.
Dewey. Oh no. I think we did. Dewey saying that. Oh no, he's
Oh,
right.
he's there.
Dewey.
Yeah.
Dewey telling her that Sydney's still alive is
Right.
such a good moment, and just seeing her having to react in real time to her plan just imploding in front of her is so good. And then it ending with the news not traveling to them yet, and
Right.
calling her a hero while she's dead, like
Right.
a few stories up.
You're right.
Fantastic.
So good.
One of the best endings I'll give.
So
which
that's
is why
that's
it's
why I give it
up
two.
as high as it is. So good.
But I think most people, again,
That's
if you,
number 2.
yeah, that's my number 2. And if anybody, if you go into Scream forums, they hate 4. Like, people really hate 4.
Of course.
They do. They 100% hate 4.
Okay.
I am adamant about not hating it, but yeah. But
Well,
Number one.
my number one's 1.
Right. I don't think we even need to debate why number 1 should be it, but you can debate.
We
yours.
don't, but Brian, give us why you think Scream 2 is the best. That's what was
Scream
left,
2?
right?
no, Scream 4.
Oh, Scream 4.
Oh,
Scream 2 is my number 6.
Right.
Okay. Sorry, there's just so many numbers going around.
There's a lot of numbers flying around here.
1 broke the genre. 1 is the only
So-
reason why they can make these movies. The reason it being as good as it is why these other ones can be as good as they are. If 1 may not seem as groundbreaking as 5, or in terms of like all this like showmanship and the story being brought together and everything, 1 is a masterpiece. We could have had this conversation. We would still be able to have this conversation now if they only made Scream 1. We still could have talked this long just if they made Scream, and it never went any further. It's amazing, and it holds up. It's fucking incredible. And
my parents are
the
going to be
older
so
ones
mad at me,
hope
Brian.
to reach that level.
Huh?
My parents are going to be so mad at me. You didn't call them, did you?
So my counter to that is, name me one horror film that was just solo that you can say was just great.
The Ring.
That was Solo?
Well,
Ring?
The Fog.
The Fog was good though. I'm not gonna, okay, The Fog, but no, I'm not gonna call it great though.
Can we count how it was originally supposed to be? Texas Chainsaw Massacre was
Midsummer was really good, but it's all by itself.
Midsummer. See?
I mean, we're talking really good. We're talking about great though. We're talking about like, oh my god, that I don't need any more. That's done.
I feel Midsummer's great.
Yeah. I'm gonna go with that one. Thanks, Travis.
No, the Ring had sequels. I think you said the Ring.
It did, but like, they don't count. It would have been great on its own. It's another
Right.
example of that would have been still. No one talked about 2 and after.
And I will tell you,
it
this
may
is
as well
weird,
be its
Brian,
own.
because it's weird because this is the only franchise that I will stick with number 1. Like Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, Halloween. Like, I will choose all the. Oh, Ready.
Those are both Freddy versus Jason. They
And
both.
I
Same
think the
movie.
thing about it is though is that with I feel that I think we all kind of felt it even with the very first Scream that this was just the first Scream. Like a lot of horror is known for its franchises. Like that's what horror is known for. And when you go into making a horror film, sometimes you go into it with this idea of like, okay, just one. But a lot of times you go into this idea of like franchise. And I think that Scream was all about this new version of a franchise that maybe they didn't know was going to become a franchise, but they knew it had the potential to become one. And I think what 1 did was lay the foundation. I mean, there's so many elements in Scream 1 that we don't get the answers to. Her mother, her father, the relationships, like motivation fully of Billy and Stu, And I think that what ends up happening is you get this like Jamie Lee Curtis kind of thing happening with Nev Campbell, as Sidney Prescott. And so I feel like one ultimately, even though it wasn't guaranteed to be a franchise or sequel or whatever, I think one was just like where let's try this idea and see what happens. And Kevin Williamson, who I believe wrote Scream 2, right?
Yeah, he wrote 1, 2,
Yep,
and
he
4.
did 1, 2, 4.
Right. Like he he was ready to come back, and he had this other idea. And so I feel like Scream 1 it's hard. Nostalgia is hard because I'm right there with you. Like I have Scream 1 at 3 because of nostalgia, because of the way it's set up. But if I'm looking at how the movies, like what the movies do, I feel like, Scream 1 isn't the best movie because at the end of the day, he's at the beginning of his Scream writing career, right? Like he knows these characters after 1 and 2. And after someone else has written 3, he's like, oh, okay. Well, let me sit back and look at this. And what do I have to say? So his author purpose now changes. And in 4, what you get, and this is going to what, are we able to jump to number 1 now?
We are at number 1. We're hearing
Yeah, this is number 1. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Bet.
We've
Because
already
we're
said
number
that
1.
you were wrong. Like,
Yeah.
but we're letting you speak.
Okay, cool. Bet.
11.
So I feel like at number 1 for me, Scream 4 is that this is Kevin Williamson being able to look back over a few years now after written Scream 1 to say, here's where I think the story is. Here's where I think Sydney is. Here's where I've taken her as a writer. Here's where another writer took her, and here's where I think she is now. And I think what we get is the most adult Sydney, the most together Sydney, who's dealt with trauma, who's trying to make something of her life, and she's back in Woodsboro, and she's dealing with her first time in being in Woodsboro, dealing with everything has happened to her since Woodsboro, since college, since LA. And she's trying to fix and help and share her story to other people. And I think that is central to who and what her character is as far as an arc of finality. What ends up happening is that once again, her personal life, going back to her mother, kind of interpedes on her moving forward. And she finds out that there's this whole subversive plot that focuses on her dying because she's gotten more clout, more whatever, and this John's cousin, has orchestrated this whole thing. This is the most connected plot to about to episode 1 to movie 1 that we've seen, because
which is the best and most important. So you'd want that to be your anchor point.
Exactly. And Kevin Williamson, like he sculpted that, and he saw that here's how we can make 4 connect to 1 while also introducing a whole new cast. He didn't realize that he was setting up Kirby, which Radio Silence ended up doing the 5. Like
I want to hear if he thinks she survived.
Exactly, probably not.
I don't think she did.
No.
But I will say there was an interview with Wes Craven that said, she did give a breath when you walked away, when they cut away.
Oh, okay.
Like what?
Right.
But that was Wes, and he's dead, so we can't really get it.
Yeah, I was like, so that's half of maybe.
What's interesting to me is what I've learned, especially in 6, is if you don't see them take their last breath,
it's comic rules.
It means that they're alive.
Yeah, it's comic book rules.
Yeah, I knew she
you
was
see
alive.
a body. You need to see coffin.
Yeah.
embalming,
You-
all of that stuff.
For me, that was a dead giveaway when she's like my dead brother. Like there was plot that answers that we didn't get,
Yep.
Yeah.
and she's dead. Nope, she's not dead.
Yep. Exactly.
If you didn't put that in, I probably would have went, oh, okay.
My only
Right.
rebuttal to everything that you said, because I don't try to change people's opinions, but if this was a debate, the only thing that I would pick apart what you said is that he wrote it thinking that there would be more. And if that were true, Rose McGowan would have survived the first one. That's it. He went bloodthirsty. He was doing. There was very little setup. The things that you say are like ancillary things that could be worked upon were just reasonings for why the world was the way they are. They weren't set up to be expounded upon. They were just there to show that there's a person, why she's alone, why she's isolated, all of those things, and then they found reasons later to use. Rose would have survived 100%. If they thought franchise, they would have kept Rose around. She was an up and comer at the time. It would have been like killing Tara in 5. It wouldn't have happened, and it wouldn't have been as bloody. It would have been a much more PG-13 movie if it was meant to be a sequel. Not that he couldn't have ideations of like maybe this could be a Scream 2, but if it was intended for it, there would have been some changes to it. And that's the only thing I have to say.
I agree with that. I really do agree with that. My only counter, and this is what I used to say with Patrick. Like,
I love it.
My only counter is this: is that I know, like for the Vineyard, like I wrote it as a 1 to 4 issue.
Should I put Vineyard spoilers on here now too, just in case?
maybe. But I also know that in my mind, I wanted it to be a complete story because I know how publishers are with complete stories.
Uh-huh.
But I left room within the story to where
Sure.
I knew where I could potentially go. And that's what I did. And that's not to say that I don't have a Vineyard 2 pitch.
And that's what I think he may have
Just
done,
sitting out
is left some breathing room for it. But that movie, you watch it, you don't go, oh my God, I need another one because I need to know blank.
Yeah, there's no question
that's
unanswered.
It could have been done, and it would have been a fantastic movie all on its own.
I think we can answer all these questions in a few quick things. First, to go back to the horror movie that only has one, Get Out is a fantastic horror movie.
Oh, Get Out.
Yeah.
Parasite. Parasite's the one that I thought of later.
No sequel to that. No sequel.
Exactly. No sequel to that. And
Get it?
I think the sequel, the reason why number 1 is the first Scream is said in Scream 4. Never fuck with the original.
Yeah.
Right by Kevin Williamson and Wes
Kevin.
I respect that. And just because he said that, I had to make it number 1.
They said in 4, 1 is better. Clearly.
I mean,
which makes 4 just so good because it recognizes the greatness.
And that's where I'm going with it.
It's the catch-22. You're in a circle.
It's such a circle fuck where it's just like I totally get it. I really struggle. I struggle with my top 3 because I know where I was in '96 when I watched Scream 1, and I know how I felt about Scream 1. And I know how I felt about the subsequent movies that came after. But what also affects that though is how the sequel came after like a year or so later.
Yeah, it was a year after the first one.
Right. And then you have like the third one. It's all close in proximity.
That's why those are so far down.
Right. And when you get to like that number, like that number 11 year, and you have number 4 where you haven't had Scream, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, Scream, another Scream coming. And so I remember being excited about 4 coming out.
It hurt so much that it took so long for another one.
Right, but I needed the time. And I'll tell you, one of the biggest things for me was Jill.
Yeah.
Jill as a killer was like, I honestly didn't see it coming. Like, I missed
It was
that.
great for the moment. That was
Yeah.
very of the time. It felt right, and
Yeah.
it's a great message.
I'm like, you know what? Like 2 and 3, like I didn't know those two for sure. 3, I wasn't all the way in on. Like, okay, Roman.
I don't
But
even. What was Roman's message? I don't remember what Roman's message. What was his? He was just. It was revenge. It was kind of like.
yeah,
Right.
Yeah,
Sydney had
his
the life that he didn't have.
yeah, and yeah, it was about the mom and motherhood and broken households and
Sure.
Yeah,
things like that, and playing favorites with
Yeah.
children. It
Poor
was
kid. He got to be rich and make movies. It was,
I know,
he
and
never
that's
had
what's
to-
always it's like
Poor guy.
the most privileged person in
Poor
the
guy.
movie is the killer because that they didn't have enough privilege.
Poor guy.
It's just like fuck off.
Yo, but Jill killed her mother, yo.
Oh my god,
Right.
yeah.
Jill killed her
yeah.
mother.
Jill's savage.
Jill
mean,
is savage, yo.
I will tell you though, Richie like has the
The
potential to be
president
my
of
favorite.
Battlestar
Like they gave so much to Richie in 6 that
Mhm.
he is like going up my rankings really fast for my favorite killer.
Didn't they
Yeah.
really heighten Richie's
Oh, yeah.
legacy in 6?
I think he's as important as Billy and Stu now, like going
Yeah.
forward,
Yeah.
which is
They
really cool and something they needed.
They needed
Yeah.
that because Billy was starting to lose weight just because of time.
Right.
Like it's just been too many killers since, and by elevating Richie, they elevated Richie and Billy all at like the same time basically. They brought a new killer up to their level and then brought Billy back to the forefront too and was like you don't worry about these other people. That message they're good. Here's where we are now and before. It's great. I love it.
They did a great job with. I mean, at the end of the day, I think we can say that what 6 did was, it really established. Not that it wasn't established before, but it really made sure that the establishment of the legacy
Right.
of Scream is like 100% intact. And
Well, yeah, we still have the legacy characters. They're just taking form in these new people.
but even the legacy of the killers of how
Yes.
they pay homage to all of the killers
Right.
throughout, and so it's like you don't get to your newest killer without, like, it's a precedent now. You don't get to the next killer without having gone through the rest of the killers now.
Yeah.
And that's what they did in 6. They made it so that all the killers are validated.
Right.
All the killers are important. All the killers, like, they live on. Even though they don't live, they live on. Every time someone puts on a ghost face, they are now becoming every single other killer before them. And
But
they becoming
can
more.
they just not become Roman though?
Roman's one that needs to be forgotten.
Yeah, he can go away. It's just it's so personal with Sydney versus all the other ones have like this other message, and his is just like, sup, sis.
Yeah, like, I hate you, sis. I hate you. I hate you.
Suck. I wish I had your weird rural suburban life instead of this directing movies one.
I mean, Kevin Williamson didn't write that one, so
it kind of shows.
Well, so the third one was supposed to be a cult. So
It makes way more sense.
Yeah, it was supposed to be a cult of Scream killers that were going after people, but
you could have like 5 or 6.
Yeah, I think Columbine happened, so they did it. That's why the kills are weak. If you watch 6, like
it is.
The kills are weaker. Everything in 3 are weaker because of the times.
Yes.
The studios, which is weird because I would have doubled down. Like
that nose one though, while not being graphic, was like, well, that's new.
Right.
Because you don't see a lot of like nose stabbing.
I feel like the best kill in 3 was Cotton Weary. Like, that whole scene with Cotton Weary, like the opening scene was great. Yeah. That opening scene was perfect. Like, Cotton Weary's getting it? Oh, that's something.
I liked Cotton Weary too in that. I thought it was great.
It was a great opener.
Yeah.
But you could tell, and I think this would be our final thought. Is nothing. If you guys have final thoughts, that's fine. This is my final
I
thought.
love it. That's my
Right.
favorite. That's going to be your new.
Yeah,
Gotta
right.
be the new outro. Our final thought is, and then you give a really deeply personal, based thought.
Is I think you could really tell why they changed it to 6, going from Scream to 6. Like it wouldn't have had that impact if it was like Scream 2,
No.
like a reboot. Like you needed to have 6 to go like, no, this is a legacy, this is a
Yeah.
franchise, and I'm sure like their intention for 5 was this is going to be a reboot, and then we'll figure out
I
what we
don't
do
know. It
next.
seems very meta to do Scream 1, 2, 3, 4, Scream 6.
Yeah, maybe.
Like,
Yeah.
It seems like the kind of bullshit you would do. Like, this is what they would do. They'd reboot it, but then we're not actually rebooting it, but we're gonna name it like we're rebooting it, and then it just goes to 6.
Scream should have been Screams.
Scream.
At the S.
So many people said that.
Dollar
So many
sign.
people said that. So
The
many,
Cameron thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
So many people said that.
Oh,
I'm so curious to see what they do at 7, like how they make it blend into like, because I think that's what they're trying to do, right? They're trying to bring, like, even with Scream 6, it like the way they marked it with the V in this in the 1, right? The
Yep.
Roman numerals, it still says 6, but it still says Scream.
Yep.
Right. And so
Mhm.
I'm curious to see what they're going to do at 7.
Are they going to get 7 in there because they've
Yeah.
done that each time? It's like 4 because 4 was the A.
Mm-hmm.
They got that in there because that's at least they could do
Yeah.
Leet Speak. At least that was there at the time. And then Scream was just Scream. So yeah, that'll be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a good final thought. I like it. I like it's Scream 6 because we're gonna get more. This is the first Scream that I felt like we need another one.
Oh yeah,
They
yeah.
did not end this as clean as the other ones. This is the first time when I'm like, well, there's gonna be another one for sure. It has to because you can't end it here. They left things. I need to see where Sam goes. Every
going
other time
back
I've
to-
been like, Sydney is fine now.
Yeah, no. I think Brian said it earlier, there is no bad Scream movie. Unlike
No.
Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm
Oh,
Street,
yeah,
like,
there's some
bad
ones.
movies in there.
Halloween.
Yeah.
A lot of bad Halloween movies.
There's a lot of that one's mostly bad.
You have to forgot the timeline with Halloween. Like, what's the timeline on this? Wait a second.
Right?
Hold on.
Where are we again?
What timeline is this?
It's 2000. Okay.
Wait, this is not H20 anymore. Okay, we're over here. Okay, I got you.
Halloween needs its own stab version to like separate.
Oh my
it.
god!
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what it needs. That's exactly what it needs.
Well, thank you so much, Brian. Appreciate you having you on and going. That was so
Optimus
long
Prime
ago.
was the
That
killer.
was so long ago. I love it. Thanks for being here. Thanks for talking
It's a
Scream
blast, yo.
with
Thank
us.
you guys.
Everybody, check it out in the description. If you've gotten this far and you've
Right.
read through our Scream rant, please check out Brian's stuff, his Twitter and Substack, and the Kickstarter for America's Kingdom is all in the description. Go check it out. Go support this talent right here.
I appreciate you. Thank you, guys. Hey, look, this has been a blast. I enjoyed talking about comics. And I'm chopping it up. Scream has just talking about Scream has been a blast. I think I could go all day with Scream. I think
We could do this again.
yeah, I could go all day.
We'll come back for 7.
Yes.
There we go. There we
This
go.
will have to be a
Predictions.
recurring segment.
Predictions.
Oh,
Yes.
and if you want us back sooner, Dimension Films and Scream, I don't know who's directing you now. Just make that unrated cut. We're excited. We'll come back.
We're
back way
in.
sooner.
Yeah, we'll do it again.
Love
There
those
we go.
unrated cuts.
There we go. For sure.
Awesome.
I'm
All right.
Travis.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm
Wait,
Tom.
Oh,
Now we're
You
doing.
usually sign off. You're usually the sign off guy.
We've leveled up.
Yeah.
I was so confused what we're doing.
It's
level
all right.
up.
It's much later and longer than it normally
Right.
goes.
We've leveled up.
It's,
We may want to cut
it's
this.
1 o'clock.
Yeah, we may want to cut this into 2 episodes.
It might need to be, but right now it's live. So, bye.
Oh, yeah, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Enjoy, guys.
Outro